1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. 855-212-4CBS is number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Got Stuart Kovacs, Moist Mike, rocking and rolling with me all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Paul O'Neill, we'll chat a little baseball as we gear up for the season, is going to stop by at 4:20 p.m. Eastern, 1:20 p.m. Pacific today. I got to start the show with some of the conversation that I've been hearing in the last 24 hours about the NBA All-Star Game. And I'm going to do this in a very peaceful way. I'm in a very good mood today. It's a holiday Monday. Most of the people that usually work here are not here. It's just me. It's Santa. It's Stu. It's a few other people in the newsroom. I'm in a very calm mood to start off this week on a Monday. I'm not going to be here Thursday and Friday, taking a little trip to Orlando. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the week. But I am just amazed. And it's tough for people to amaze me these days because a lot of people do many stupid things. But it's amazing to me how so many people are losing their damn mind over the pathetic product that the NBA put on their basketball court on Sunday evening. And people are freaking out saying the All-Star Game has to get canceled. They should never do the game ever again. And it's an embarrassment. And it's a complete and utter disgrace to competition in the sport of basketball. Like, why are people losing their mind? What were your expectations going into the All-Star Game? The All-Star Game, for a long time, minus the first year that they did the Elam ending, has been a disaster. For like the last 10 to 15 years, the All-Star Game, quite frankly, and it's not an NBA issue, like the Pro Bowl in the NFL, that's now a flag football game where I don't even understand the scoring process. So All-Star games aren't made for me. All-Star games aren't made for you. For the most part, this at least is my understanding and my take of it, games are kind of for kids. To see all the stars and play together, and you see them on the court, you see them on a field, and it's an event pretty much for kids and for the younger fans. That's the way that I've always taken the All-Star game. And if you disagree, to no surprise, when you were young and innocent, the All-Star game was something that you enjoyed. I enjoyed All-Star games when I was a kid. As I got older, I have no longer enjoyed All-Star games. So I don't need to hear what you think is your revolutionary idea today and how you're going to basically be the commissioner and how you're going to save the All-Star weekend. Because here's your problem. And here is something that is a part of the spineless Silver era with Adam Silver in the NBA. When you run a league where players, and a lot of players, bitch and complain about having to get to 65 games a year now to win awards, or you have regular season nights when you don't have a damn clue who's going to be on the court. Like, if you can't get guys up for the regular season and you can't have them play with enough intensity where the regular season product is actually a good product, which it's not, when they're getting paid for that, what makes you think in a wave of a wand, because you think you're a brainiac and you think you have these great ideas compared to everybody else, then all of a sudden you're going to fix the All-Star game? There's not a damn thing you could do to fix the All-Star game. And the reason is because players don't care about the regular season, so why are you going to have them give a rat's ass about an exhibition game? And don't sit here and call me up at 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227 and say, oh, well, home court advantage for the NBA Finals should be decided by the All-Star game. Because I've seen that take. Like, do we just live in a society where we all like to say things for years, and then years later, when something doesn't go our way, we like to be hypocrites? I think that's what our world is. Because, not that I'm ancient, but I'm old enough to remember when Major League Baseball made their All-Star game, which got stale, which got boring, and it tried to mean something, and that's how they dictated who had home field advantage for the World Series. And then guess what? We all complained about that. And we all said that's stupid. So that's actually the one that I laughed about the most last night. When I saw someone tweet out, oh, home court advantage in the NBA Finals should be determined by, is it East or West that wins the All-Star game? That person, there's no way they could be a baseball fan. And, it's just wild to me. And you guys know me. I love Hot Take Hickey. He was my producer for a while. But he was on last night. And he was on CBS Sports Radio. He moved into a new time slot, Sunday evenings from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern. I'll be a good company guy and give my guy Ryan Hot Take Hickey a plug. But I tuned in to his show last night. And he's not surprised that the All-Star game sucks. But he was like, I think he's more in line of my thinking, where the All-Star game is just a bad product and you should just accept it because the regular season's a bad product. And some people have accepted that. I have not. But let's start with the regular season before we fix the All-Star game. But Hickey even was losing his mind. He was doing his high-pitched screaming last night, which is just crazy to me. Like, why is anyone screaming about this innocuous All-Star game? And I just wonder what your expectations are. Because I like to think I'm realistic. My expectations going into All-Star weekend was the dunk contest was going to suck. I would enjoy the three-point contest. I was curious and thoroughly enjoyed Steph versus Sabrina, and I'll get to that in just a second. And the actual game, I'm going to be fully transparent. I didn't turn on the game for a second. Now, it doesn't mean that I wasn't plugged in. It doesn't mean that I didn't do my research before the show started. But why would I waste my time caring about something that isn't marketed towards me, nor do I know that the players actually give a damn? So why would you get so incensed about that? Like, if you were actually shocked at the lethargic, putrid, and terrible performance in the NBA All-Star game, and you are genuinely shocked, meet me after the show. I have a bridge to sell you, all right? Because no one should be shocked by this. This has been this way for a very long time. So I'm not going to raise my blood pressure today. And trust me, I could scream with the best of them. Trust me, I could rant with the best of them. I could go off on a topic with the best of them. But I only do that if I genuinely feel that way. I don't scream just to scream. Like, I get it. I'm a loud New Yorker. So by nature, even when I'm not trying to scream, some days it does sound like I'm screaming. But that's when I am actually worked up about something. That's when I'm actually hot about something and annoyed about something. How can anyone actually be annoyed with this All-Star game? Because to be annoyed about something, you had to expect something great. And if you expected this to be a great All-Star game, you're just a damn fool. And actually, I actually think All-Star Weekend, not the game, but All-Star Weekend exceeded my expectations. And I'll even say, from where my standards are, I look back at All-Star Weekend in the NBA as a positive. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Jaylen Brown was disappointing in the dunk contest. Mac McClung won, and his best dunk wasn't even his highest rated dunk. Jacob Toppin probably should have been in the finals over Jaylen Brown. The three-point contest was fine. But that Sabrina versus Steph three-point competition, that should be the new featured event of All-Star Weekend. And I don't know how long it's going to be well received. I don't know how long people will be entertained by it. But bare minimum, the next 5 years, I want to see, and it doesn't just have to be Sabrina Ionescu up against Steph Curry, but how about next year we incrementally improve it and enhance it and just add Damian Lillard and then also Caitlin Clark? Like, could you imagine that three-point competition, which was by far and away the best point and the preeminent takeaway from All-Star Weekend? Could you imagine you throw Steph and Sabrina into the mix? Well, you already had them there, and then you add Caitlin Clark and Damian Lillard into the mix. And you just have those four decide it next year. And I'll even take it a step further. I've always had respect for Steph Curry, but I now like Steph Curry even more and have a newfound respect for Steph Curry. And Steph Curry, quite frankly, could be the most likable athlete ever. Like, I'm not saying that Steph Curry is the greatest athlete ever. But to see how he changed the game and how many people can relate to Steph Curry and how dominant he's been as a three-point shooter, and what is the blunder on this guy's resume? Think about it. This guy played for a team when Kevin Durant joined that there was reasons to hate the Golden State Warriors. But there's never really been a reason to hate Steph Curry outside of the one time his wife was basically saying that the refs rigged the NBA. Or when he threw his mouthpiece that one time and it hit a fan by mistake. But when you look at someone that's been in the spotlight forever, those two things really are minor things and not actual things where you grow a hatred to this man. And I saw Sean Pendergast, who hosts a bunch of shows here on CBS Sports Radio from time to time. And I put this tweet out last night that I don't get how anyone hates Steph Curry. And even Sean agreed, and he's a Rockets fan, right? He covers the Houston Rockets, and the Warriors derailed the Rockets season many times in the postseason. Even he agreed, outside of just that natural jealousy and that natural animosity that happens when a star player continuously beats your team over and over again, there's no legitimate reason to dislike Steph Curry. The guy always has a smile on his face. He does something with the basketball that's so unique. It's fun. It's energetic. When he makes some of these shots from the distance that he does, your jaw hits the floor, and he's just so likable. Honestly, when you look at sports the next 5 years, right now the two most likable stars have to be Steph Curry and Patrick Mahomes. I guess if you want to throw a hockey player in there, it's Connor McDavid or Hughes in New Jersey. I think both those guys are extremely likable. And then for baseball, it's Shohei Ohtani. But from what Steph and Mahomes have accomplished and also the championships that they have won, I just can't sit here and say that I dislike Steph Curry. And there was nothing to gain, really, for him going into this weekend. Like, he didn't have to do, and I know NBA players feel really close to the WNBA, and they try to help the WNBA all they can. And the sport of women's basketball has really taken a big leap the last few years. And remember, go back to the Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark national championship game, how much we talk about Caitlin Clark in college basketball, and we all know how great Sabrina Ionescu is. And to see her in that moment against Steph and the final score be 29-26 with both of them shooting from the men's three-point line, I thought it was really cool. And it made me walk away from All-Star Weekend with at least something that was positive. And that simple event exceeded all my expectations and make me look back at NBA All-Star Weekend and I say, okay, I was fine with it because I thought my expectations were fair. But Steph didn't have to do that event. And I know that this may not be the right way to look at it, but I think this is just a fair way to say it. Like, imagine how much Steph would have got clowned on social media. Oh, you lost to a girl? If he lost to Sabrina Ionescu? Like the greatest three-point shooter of all time. Could you imagine if he lost to Sabrina? But he didn't care because it was for the better part of the game of basketball. And that was the one moment that we should encapsulate from All-Star Weekend. And that's the thing we should talk about instead of every Tom, Dick, and Harry doing lazy radio today, getting on the radio or getting on television, just screaming and losing their mind and giving their great ideas, which aren't actually great, on how to save NBA All-Star Weekend. NBA All-Star Weekend, the actual game sucks. The slam dunk contest, it's past its prime. But that three-point contest between Steph and Sabrina should continue in this format, and you could just add more to it. I like the crossover of WNBA and NBA players in that way. And there's no reason why next year, bare minimum, it shouldn't be Dame, Steph, Sabrina, and Caitlin Clark. And I think that would be phenomenal. So if you want to chime on in on the NBA All-Star Game, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let me start things off with Stanton in Indiana. First up on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Go ahead, Stanton.
Yeah, man. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Great. So I'm kind of with you. I mean, you're hitting all your points. Like, the regular season's trash. I mean, why do we expect the All-Star Weekend, or at least the game, to be much better? But I had an idea. Get rid of the game and implement a 3-on-3 tournament in its place. Make it take it to, whatever. You don't need to add more players. Just kind of break it down into teams and give these guys something to play for. They can be competitive for something.
So you want all the All-Stars still to just participate, but you break it up into a 3-on-3 tournament is what you're saying?
Yes, sir. Every person who I've talked to thinks this would be a phenomenal idea and something they could get behind watching.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's bad to necessarily come up with something else. And I know I was just clowning that a few moments ago. But do I think it's going to change the root of the problem, which is to get people to compete more on All-Star Weekend? No, I don't. Because players are showing up, they're doing their appearances, right? They're making their money, and then they just dog the All-Star game. So now you're going to ask them to do 3-on-3 and have them compete even harder, and maybe there's a greater risk for injury. I just don't see players really opening up, the All-Star players opening up to that idea. Let's remember what this is for the NBA players that go. I don't want to say it's a vacation because you still have to do things work-related, but All-Star Weekend has kind of turned into a vacation for some of these players. And I'll go as far to even say this. You know, why people are, and I said this last week, and I'll say it again because I see it's making the rounds again today. People that are complaining about the slam dunk contest, blame LeBron. Like, we had to celebrate Jaylen Brown just participating in the slam dunk contest, and he was terrible. But we were like, wow, I can't believe Jaylen Brown's doing this. Well, when LeBron, who was the leader of the sport for 20-something years, refused to do the slam dunk contest, why should I be surprised that a lot of other people don't do the slam dunk contest? Because even though they don't have they shouldn't have the same right to stand on something like LeBron does, a lot of people then are going to say, well, if the best isn't doing it, then why would I end up doing it? So, yeah, I will say it again, and I'll say it 3,000 times today. I'm not getting mad over All-Star Weekend. And I actually don't think All-Star Weekend was that bad because of what happened with Steph and Sabrina. All righty, we'll take a time out of this Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. There was something else that was pretty juicy to come out of All-Star Weekend and has to do with LeBron James. Is anyone buying what he's saying? We'll discuss in 5 minutes on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
All All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. Adrian Wojnarowski is reporting after Jacques Vaughn has been fired as the head basketball coach of the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets are talking with assistant Kevin Ollie on the interim head coaching job and are expected to talk more today. Ollie, who had a 13-year NBA playing career, won the 2014 NCAA title as UConn's coach and joined the Nets this season after 2 years of running Overtime Elite. And as you all know, Kevin Ollie is practically like banned from college basketball with how that ended at UConn. But now it's looking like he's going to be the interim head coach for the Brooklyn Nets. Who cares? Seriously. I don't know if I'm in this mood today. And maybe I'm just on one today because it's the first 20-something minutes of the show. But there's so many stories today that I have to talk about that I'm just like, who actually cares? And the whole Jacques Vaughn thing, too. Like, this dude, you could say he never got a chance. But now actually finally getting the organization back where you didn't have to cater to every one of Kevin Durant's needs and Kevin Durant was just a terrible general manager. Yeah, the team underachieved this year. This should have been a team that should have been gritty enough where they should have been a shoo-in, especially with 10 teams basically making the playoffs now with the play-in tournament, to make the postseason. Like, they have some talent on this roster, starting with Mikal Bridges. You don't have enough talent to go win a playoff series or go win an NBA championship, but there's enough there where you have to perform better. But I can't excuse the coach because you don't have the fallback now where the blame should have probably been placed on Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving. Like, when things didn't work with Steve Nash, well, that was on KD. KD wanted Steve Nash as the coach, and he wasn't qualified to be the next head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. And when things weren't working out well last year or a year and a half ago, and people were like, oh, you got to get rid of Jacques Vaughn, I'm like, why? We all know who ran that team. It was Kevin Durant and it was Kyrie Irving. And the biggest problem with Kevin Durant is he couldn't be honest with Kyrie Irving because it was clear he needed to abandon Kyrie Irving, but he didn't have the guts to abandon Kyrie Irving. And he knew he had to leave Brooklyn so it didn't look like he was quitting on his friend in Kyrie Irving. So I guess an early congratulations. It could be premature to Kevin Ollie, but it looks like they're at least talking with him to be the next interim head coach. So there you go, an opportunity for Kevin Ollie maybe to rewrite history on his basketball tenure as a coach. I'm not expecting anything to change because the Nets are going to be a problem. And I have no problem with the Nets going all in. The Nets should have gone all in. But now this is what happens when you have a star or stars and they couldn't get on the same page. Now the next few years are going to be extremely ugly. And it's not as if the Nets have this great fan base and the Nets are this popular team. There's not a lot of reasons why you want to join the Nets, but everything they almost built with Sean Marks and Kenny Atkinson, I'm not saying that they should not have pursued Kevin Durant and Kyrie. They had to, but you also then can't be surprised when bleep hits the fan. Now, maybe why it hit the fan, that's a different reason. And this is what you have. Like, the house burnt down last year. Now you just have to try to build it back up, and it's going to be tough to go through all that crap to build back up a good new house. So Jacques Vaughn now out as the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. Anyway, I got to get to LeBron James. And sometimes you hear BS, and then other times you really hear things that are just full of BS. This is LeBron James when asked about it All-Star Weekend, how he will retire. Will there be a retirement tour? Let's listen up to King James.
I was asked this question a couple of days ago. Will you kind of take the farewell tour, or will you kind of just Tim Duncan it? I'm 50-50. I'm going to be honest, because there's times where I feel like I guess I owe it to my fans that's been along this journey with me for 2 decades plus to be able to give them that moment, you know, whereas every city and whatever the case may be, and, you know, they give you your flowers or whatever the case may be, you know, and that seems cool.
Just insufferable. And when I hear that, all I could say is, what a douche. Seriously. And I happen to be more of a LeBron supporter than a LeBron hater, but LeBron really says some stupid, unbelievable crap. And that's like right at the top of the list. He's 50-50 on the idea of doing a retirement tour or just Tim Duncaning it. Come on. LeBron wants all the praise. LeBron wants everyone to bow down to him and basically kiss the throne of the king. And he deserves it. I have no problem. but just own it. When you're at that legendary status, I don't care if you want to walk away and have no fanfare or have all the fanfare in the world. But him saying that it's 50-50 on that decision is like me saying, oh, yeah, I have a 50-50 desire to date Margot Robbie. Like, of course, if Margot Robbie wanted to date my pathetic ass, it would be 100%. I wouldn't even question it. But he's 50-50 about the retirement tour. And I also love how he sets it up. Oh, the only reason I would consider doing it is for the fans. Oh, the fans, so they could say goodbye to me, and how many people loyally supported me throughout the years. I just want to thank the fans. No, you want everyone to kiss your ass, and it's deserved. We should have to kiss your ass for the way that you dominated the sport for the last 20 years. But someone that's all about himself, don't give me this pathetic bullcrap that, yeah, I may want to be like Tim Duncan. You're nothing like Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan hated doing media. Tim Duncan hated the spotlight. You love doing, having conversations with the media. You love the spotlight. There is no way LeBron James retires and just walks off. He is going to make this a year spectacle. Now, when that's going to happen, I don't know. But here is LeBron James also talking about his future with the Los Angeles Lakers as there is a player option after this season.
But I am a Laker, and I am happy and been very happy being a Laker the last 6 years, and hopefully it stays that way. But I don't have the answer to how long it is or which uniform I'll be in. Hopefully it is with the Lakers. It's a great organization and so many greats, but we'll see. I don't know how it's going to end, but it's coming.
So, Stu, let me ask you this. Not a full year left on the deal because it's a player option. So LeBron's going to opt out this summer. Let's just say it that way. Do you have the expectation that LeBron is going to be back with the Lakers next year? And if you do you believe that LeBron is going to end his career with the Los Angeles Lakers?
I think he'll be back next year. I think he'll be back maybe one more year before Bronny comes into the league. And then when I think Bronny comes into the league, he'll go with him for a year, wherever that is. Probably not the Lakers, maybe the Lakers, who knows. Maybe he forces, the Lakers to draft him high or something like that. So maybe in that case he does, but I don't think he ends his career in the Lakers. I don't.
So here's the thing that I'll say is that's LeBron's vision to play with Bronny. I don't know if it's Bronny's vision. And remember how adamant LeBron has been about this. And there was some moment last year where he said, this is what I want to do. I don't know, and I'm paraphrasing here, but this is the gist of it. I don't know if this is what Bronny wants to do. So maybe through the back channels, this is kind of LeBron's way, even though you may roll your eyes at him saying, oh, I want to finish my career with the Lakers, and that's my intention because of everything he said about Bronny. Maybe this is him starting to soften the blow a little bit more to his idea of playing on the same team with his son. And the other part is his son's going to get drafted. If it comes with the assurance that LeBron's going to be teaming up with Bronny wherever Bronny gets drafted, then that does definitely improve the draft stock of Bronny James. But is Bronny James ready? Yeah, I know he just went through the serious heart condition and wish him nothing but the best. He's now playing for USC. I saw there was some alley-oop that was thrown his way the other night, and he tapped the ball in under Andy Einfeld at USC. Is he necessarily ready to go to the NBA after this year? I would probably say no. But just because Zach Gelb doesn't think he's ready doesn't mean that he actually will. Because if that's still the plan for Bronny to team up with LeBron, well, Bronny will go somewhere in the first round. Because how many times after the first 5 picks of the NBA draft, we're like, who the heck just got drafted? And who the heck is that person? Some team will take a flyer on Bronny, even if Bronny only plays in the league for 2-3 years, if it means they get at least one full season with LeBron James. But kind of him saying that he wants to stay in Los Angeles, I don't think Rob Pelinka, who I'll give Rob Pelinka and the Lakers credit, out of all the organizations that LeBron's probably played for, we know the Cavs did everything pretty much to appease LeBron. The Heat, the only time Pat Riley said no was when he wanted him to fire Eric Spoelstra. But also look at the team that they formed in Miami. I kind of feel like the Lakers have been the team that have given LeBron the most pushback in his career with the teams that LeBron has been on. So I don't think, or I would not expect that Rob Pelinka already made a guarantee to LeBron James, hey, I'm going to draft your son, so go sign a long-term extension with us, because you can't even guarantee that, because who knows where you'll fall in the draft, and maybe some team wants to take Bronny and they actually believe in Bronny and they take him earlier. So I think we need to stop in terms of predicting how much longer LeBron's going to play based off Bronny, because we don't even know if Bronny wants his dad on the same team as him. And I hear that answer from LeBron, and that's the first thing that I wrap my head around, is maybe they've had that conversation now, father and son, and this is LeBron starting to shift away from that idea of playing with Bronny, because maybe Bronny doesn't want to do that. And if that's the case, I can't fault Bronny. Then if Bronny wants to play with his dad, I can't fault him for it as well. But I just don't know how much longer LeBron is going to play. And I think LeBron likes when we're all guessing about it. The only thing I do know for sure is that there's going to, barring injury, where your career just ends off one injury, barring injury, you will know when it's LeBron's final season, or you at least know when, like, halfway through the season of LeBron's final season, because there will be some big retirement tour. I will say this. A month ago, I would not have said LeBron finished his career with the Lakers. I now think that he is going to finish his career with the Lakers. I think he'll sign one more deal with the Lakers, and that will be the final deal that he signs, because maybe behind the scenes, Bronny kind of told Dad, hey, I know this is your dream and your vision, but I want to kind of live my own dream and my own vision, and I don't want you on the same team as me whenever I do enter the NBA. It is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a break. We'll come on back. Samter's got some questions for me. I'll try to give you some answers. We call this segment Onside Offside. We do it every Monday and Friday right here on CBS Sports Radio. Update time first. Here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Looking for a career path with flexibility and great pay and benefits? Go to progressive.com/careers and apply online today. The Nets' 50-point loss in Boston last week signaled it was time for a change, and today it came. Jacques Vaughn was fired midway through his third season. He was 71-68 since taking over, but the Nets have been in a tailspin since a solid start, dropping 23 of the last 31 games. No official word as of yet is who is taking over, but ESPN reports it is leaning toward Kevin Ollie. The Timberwolves and Mike Conley reportedly agree on a 2-year deal worth $21 million. The Red Sox come to terms with the reliever Liam Hendricks on a 2-year deal. Plenty of action today in the NHL. The Stars and Bruins are even at 2 in the third period. Also third, it's the Maple Leafs on top of the Blues. 3-2 is Austin Matthews with his 49th of the season for Toronto. JT Miller with a hat trick as the Canucks lead the Wild 5-2 in the second. Red Wings and Kraken are delayed right now, and the Ducks defeated the Sabres by a score of 4-3, and the Daytona 500 gets underway at the top of the hour. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining.
3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb on CBS Sports Radio.
And it's time to ask the pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question, and it's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Be listening later in the show. We might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Moist Mike, what do we got brewing today on this special President's Day edition of the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio?
President's Day. Speaking of a president, Justin Jefferson. I got confused. It's President's Day. I can't remember anything. Justin Jefferson, Jeddah is set for a huge extension, but our buddy Mike Florio laid out one issue that could derail a deal while joining Paul Allen on KFAN in Minnesota.
They are playing with fire here, Paul, on multiple fronts between Justin Jefferson, whose patience is eventually going to run out. And that is not just me spitballing. And I can confidently say that JJ is very patient, but his patience will have its limits. And the problem continues to be not the dollars, but the structure. The Vikings are one of the few teams that will not fully guarantee beyond the first year of the contract for anyone other than Kirk Cousins. And if you're not going to make that same exception for Justin Jefferson, you are going to have a problem with Justin Jefferson eventually.
So onside, offside, the Vikings need to do whatever it takes to keep Jefferson, even if it means hurting their chances of keeping Cousins.
Onsides, they don't want Kirk Cousins back. They may get Kirk Cousins back, but that's not their first option, is to bring Kirk Cousins back. That's been so clear with just the reporting that we've seen in regards to Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell, even going back to last draft where they tried to move up to draft Anthony Richardson in some of these reports. There's going to be a new quarterback in Minnesota, but I said this to JJ at the Super Bowl, and I said it countless times last year. They should have got this contract done with Justin Jefferson last year because you didn't know who was going to be your quarterback. And then you could run the risk that Jefferson doesn't like what you decide, and then he doesn't want to get a deal done with you. But think about this approach, if that's true what Florio's saying. Outside a quarterback, Minnesota doesn't want to guarantee money after the first year of a contract? Well, then what players are going to want to go there? And I'm not saying that to fully guarantee Justin Jefferson, but guaranteed money does matter. And that's a new level to front-loading a deal to just basically make it 1 year and then the other 3 don't matter. Justin Jefferson is the identity of that team. He's the face of that franchise, and he's worth every damn penny. And the fact that they haven't got a deal done yet, you just always feel like Minnesota's going to find a way to mess this up. So when you say to me the Vikings need to do whatever it takes to keep Justin Jefferson, even if it hurts their chance of keeping Kirk Cousins, absolutely on sides.
Speaking of Cousins, Vegas odds have come out for where he'll play in 2024. The Vikings lead the way, obviously, at minus 200, with the Falcons, who I know is your pick, second at plus 300. Third on the list, however, is the Washington Commanders, who, as we know, has the number 2 overall pick, and they were coming in at plus 500. So onside, offside, the Commanders should sign Cousins rather than draft a quarterback number 2.
It's actually not a bad idea because then you could team up Terry McLaurin and you could team up Marvin Harrison Jr. because that's who you'd probably pick at 2. Or you could trade the pick and get more picks back for future years for someone that's going to want either Drake May or Jaden Daniels because Caleb Williams is going to go 1 to the Bears. But I kind of live this rule that once your ex is your ex, you don't go back to your ex for the long term. Maybe there's like a one-night kind of stand situation where you go back to your ex, but you never get back in that relationship with your ex, and that's why I don't think the Commanders should do it, and I don't think they can do it. So the Commanders should sign Cousins rather than draft a QB at number 2. Because of my rule about exes, I would say this is an offside.
Offside!
Now, the New York Aaron Rodgerses, the Jets.
Your team, your squad.
My former squad. Go Chiefs Kingdom, back-to-back, baby.
Hold on.
Three-peat.
I don't see a tattoo on you yet.
Well, you haven't looked at my lower back yet, have you?
I have not.
Okay, good.
But Mike Pennell said, star defensive lineman for the Chiefs, unsung hero of the Super Bowl, that if you actually want to go through and be a Chiefs fan, you got to get, as he said, a tramp stamp of him in that area.
I actually offered the tramp stamp. He just had a tattoo. I'll go. I'll figure it out. Now, the Jets are going all in on surrounding their star quarterback with talent. Multiple reports, including ESPN and The Athletic, say the Jets are, quote, married to Rodgers and, quote, everything the Jets do revolves around Rodgers. Major roster decisions swirl around the quarterback, end quote. Onside, offside. Forget about Rodgers, but overall, no NFL quarterback should ever have this much input and power over roster decisions.
Onsides. I want my quarterback to be involved, but he can't make every final decision. And the Jets have lost all power of their organization because they have handed their organization over to Aaron Rodgers. And I'll go back to Green Bay when Aaron Rodgers gave a press conference and he listed like 20 guys that he thought were all treated unfairly towards their end in Green Bay and how they should have stayed with the Packers. What did those guys go on to do once they left Green Bay? 99% of them basically did nothing, and the Packers were right to move on from those guys. The Packers also ended up being right in drafting Aaron Rodgers' replacement. And I know some people may say that's a premature statement, but the Packers are better off now than where they were a year ago when Aaron Rodgers was still on their roster. They made the playoffs this past year. They didn't make the playoffs a season ago. So I'm not saying don't give any input to your quarterback, but your quarterback can't make every decision because you have to manage the salary cap and do what's in the best interest of the team and not just what's in the best interest of the offense. So absolutely onside. No NFL quarterback should ever have this much input and power.
Now, women's basketball in general has been front and center this week between Caitlin Clark's scoring record and Sabrina Ionescu's three-point shootout with Steph Curry. However, both of their feats were marred by odd comments from their former male NBA stars. First, Jay Williams went after Caitlin Clark.
I am unwilling, and maybe it's more the Kobe mentorship around me, to say that she is great yet. I think she is the most prolific scorer the game has ever seen. I hold great or the levels of immortality or the pantheon to when you win championships. That's just me. So Diana Taurasi, when you win 3 consecutive championships, 2-time National Player of the Year, it has to culminate with the chip. It has to. I mean, Breonna Stewart, if we're talking about GOAT legends of the game, she's won 4 chips. 4 chips, multiple National Players of the Year. So I'm not saying that she's not at a high level, but for it to go to the states of immortality, in my opinion, it has to culminate with your team winning a championship.
Then Kenny Smith called out Ionescu's loss to Steph.
She should have shot from the women's line. That would have been a fair contest. I still root for Sabrina. She should have shot from the three-point line that the women shoot from.
Why are you putting those boundaries on her?
That's not a boundary. That's what the game is.
She wanted to shoot.
They have a smaller ball, don't they? WNBA ball is smaller.
She shot with the WNBA ball.
So she should have shot from the line. There's a women's tee in golf and there's a men's tee. For a reason. No.
Onside, offside, Williams' comment was actually dumber than Kenny Smith's.
So the order that you played that in was Kenny Smith first. You had Jay Will first and then Kenny Smith. Dumb and dumber. What Jay Will said was incredibly dumb. Don't get me wrong. Because you're saying she is the most prolific scorer of all time, but you can't call her great. So Barry Sanders, that isn't great because he didn't win a championship. Dan Marino isn't great because he didn't win a championship. So that was dumb. But it didn't ruin a moment. What Steph and Sabrina did was so awesome, and Jay Will ruined the moment. He took away from the moment. Not only did he take away from the moment, Dame Lillard, who won the men's three-point contest, had 26. Sabrina Ionescu had 26 as well. So your argument when it was close that she should have shot from the women's three-point line was just pointless, stupid, and ruined the moment. Don't get me wrong. Jay Wills was dumb too, but Kenny Smith was dumber. So when you ask me Williams' comment was dumber than Kenny Smith's, I will go offside.
Offside.
I'm just surprised Jay Will didn't say he was hacked on that broadcast. Because remember when he said that Ime Udoka was the first black coach ever for the Boston Celtics? He tweeted it out, and then he claimed his Twitter account was hacked. So I guess you can't walk that one back when the words were actually coming out of your mouth. But maybe he'll claim that that was an AI version of him and not the actual version of Jay Will. Let's go. Next one.
Now, the Oakland A's are set to move to Vegas, but appear to be hitting a few snags. First, Vegas' mayor said she doesn't believe the A's should actually move there. And now ESPN's Jeff Passan completely ripped the franchise and their owner in their attempt to relocate to Vegas.
Tony, there are doubts everywhere about the A's because here's the one thing that they have proven themselves adept at: being completely incompetent. The whole process has been messed up from the start. Dating back 20 years, them trying to get a stadium in Oakland, failing to do so, and now they're going to go to Vegas, and all of a sudden it's going to be smooth sailing in a city that really hasn't shown a lot of desire to have you. The entire thing from the beginning, Tony, has been a disaster, and if this thing fell apart, it would surprise absolutely nobody.
Shreds. Onside, offside. The A's move to Vegas will actually not happen.
Jeff Passan once blocked me on Twitter. I didn't even tag him in a tweet, and I wasn't even meaning a tweet towards him, and he saw it and he blocked me on Twitter. He was actually seated right around me at the Super Bowl, and someone, when I was walking up the steps, said, "Oh my God, it's Jeff Passan," and he was walking right by me. I'm like, "Hey, Jeff, unblock me from Twitter," and he kind of chuckled and then walked right past me. But even though I don't like Jeff Passan, he knows what he's talking about when it comes to Major League Baseball, and this is what happens when you have horrible leadership, and this all goes back to Rob Manfred. He has no control of his sport right now. And that's why this A's thing, because you're allowing a bad owner be horrible, this is why it's got to such a mess. Since Passon's even talking about how this may not happen, I'm actually going to believe it. So I will go the A's move to Vegas will not happen. I will say onsides because the A's are such a dysfunctional mess that even though this seemed like a lock that they were going to Vegas, now since it's up in the air and it's debatable, I'm going to say that it doesn't happen. And then you just wonder, where the heck do they go? Maybe you just sell the team and you have them return to Oakland, which would be the right thing, but also a bad look. And baseball should get a team in Vegas. But man, it looks like the A's could mess up a one-car funeral procession right now. All righty, that's Onside Offside. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. When we come on back, Samter's going to give me a name. I'm going to give you a prediction on where that person is playing football this upcoming season in the year of 2024. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on CBS Sports Radio. Paul O'Neill is going to stop by 25 minutes from now. We'll preview the baseball season with the former Yankees and Reds outfielder.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
And away we go, hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. The All-Star Weekend in the NBA is over with. People are irate. I'm not one of them. I don't know what the heck you actually expected. And that's why I didn't watch the All-Star game last night. However, I was very into the Saturday evening events, and I loved Steph up against Sabrina, and I think they should continue that and just add Caitlin Clark and Damian Lillard to the mix next year, and that would be a grouping of 4 people to put on out there and have them do a 3-point contest with men and women. I thought that was awesome. The slam dunk contest, it stinks when you have Jaylen Brown, who's supposed to be, the big star. And I wouldn't even say he's a big star. Don't get me wrong. Jaylen Brown's a really good player. But in terms of star power, they're bigger stars than Jaylen Brown. And when he's the biggest star in the dunk contest, and he was underwhelming, and I didn't even think he should have been in the finals. I thought it should have been Jacob Toppin. Now everyone today is trying to come up with their big ideas, how they're going to fix the slam dunk contest and they're going to fix All-Star Weekend. You can't fix it. Because when LeBron doesn't want to participate in the slam dunk contest, that ruins a lot of these bigger stars or these future stars, I should say, from wanting to do the dunk contest as well. And not only that, in terms of the actual game on Sunday, well, the players don't give a rat's ass about the regular season. So why do you think they're going to get up for an exhibition game? There's nothing you could do to fix it since they gave us one positive thing from All-Star Weekend. That was Sabrina Ionescu and Steph Curry. I think that should be enough. I'm fine with that. I am past the point of screaming about things that I just don't really care about, so I'm not going to do it today, and that should be the new featured event of NBA All-Star Weekend. They continue to grow that, and they should continue to grow that throughout the years. Anyway, we are in a big period now, the NFL offseason calendar. It's coming up soon. You have the franchise tag window that opens, and that concludes in early March, so at least know some of the guys that are going to be made franchise tag candidates, other guys that will just go to NFL free agency. The combine's right around the corner, and then before you know it, we'll have NFL free agency, and then shortly after that, in late April, we will have the NFL draft, which is in Detroit. So Samter has compiled a list of guys that could be franchise tag or will be free agents, and I will give you my official predictions on those guys right now. So Stu, cue me a little NFL music, and Samter, take us away.
All right, so the first one is maybe the most important player on my defending 2-time champion Chiefs, outside of Patrick Mahomes, of course, Mr. Chris Jones.
What about Taylor Swift's boyfriend?
Listen, if I was ranking the most important people, it's Mahomes 1, Chris Jones 2, Kelsey 3.
Now, if you ask Swifties that, they would say it's Travis Kelce 1, Travis Kelce 2, Travis Kelce 3, Brittany Mahomes 4, Patrick Mahomes 5, the guy that eats cheeseburgers that coaches the team 6, and that's probably it. Jason Kelce 7, Kylie Kelce 8.
Oh, and then Travis Kelce 9.
Yeah, if you want, you could throw him again.
Yeah.
And then 10.
Yeah, it's a sandwich it.
So Chris Jones, I think after the parade, it's clear he wants to stay in Kansas City. But just because he says he's going to be back in Kansas City doesn't mean that's going to be the case. You had a contract situation last year. They temporarily resolved it. They were able to put a Band-Aid on it. Now you got to open up that Band-Aid and there's still a wound. And the only way you heal it is with a long-term deal. I think Chris Jones is more likely to be playing elsewhere next year than making a return to Kansas City. Like, they should get this deal done. He's a top 3 player in terms of importance, like you're saying, for the Chiefs dynasty and for this to continue. And I would say your order's right. It's Mahomes 1, Jones is 2, and then Travis Kelce is 3. But I have a feeling that Jones is going to go secure the bag, as they would say this offseason. He already has the rings. So you could go to a place that maybe still gives you a chance to win and then gets you paid. And I'm going to say that Chris Jones, and this would be very ironic, because the contract stuff all started the opening game of the season when he was in the luxury box in Arrowhead and the Chiefs were going up against the Lions and the Lions won the game. I think Jones flips from the AFC to the NFC. You know the Lions are going to be aggressive this offseason because they have a window, and the Lions had a very impressive season even though it had a bad ending. Them being in the NFC Championship game is more than what anyone could have imagined before the season started. I think they try to go get a championship player this offseason. I'm going to predict Chris Jones winds up in that Detroit culture of biting off your kneecaps, playing for Dan Campbell, and Brad Holmes will be aggressive and he'll secure Chris Jones this offseason.
All right, let's go with probably the most interesting running back on the market. There's 2 big names, 3 pretty big names, but the one that really I think could be the biggest game changer at this point in his career, based on his age, is Saquon Barkley.
I don't think Saquon is worth the money because the health of Saquon is always called into question. We know he's an incredibly talented player, but if you sign him to a 3 or 4 year deal, the structure better be heavily in your favor. And it's going to be all what the guaranteed money is. Like, if you give him a 4-year deal and $26 million is guaranteed, all right, whatever number you want to say, like let's say $15 million a year. Like, even if you want to do that. So 15 times 4 is 60. And then if you want to guarantee like 28 and a half, I'm okay giving him a 4-year contract that is $28.5 million guaranteed, because then really it's a 2-year deal for almost $30 million practically when you look at that guaranteed money. I'm going to say Saquon is on the move. I don't think the Giants ink him to a long-term extension. I would have said a year ago Buffalo, but with the emergence of James Cook, Buffalo doesn't need him. So I'm between 2 teams right now. One would be staying inside the NFC East with the Dallas Cowboys, but that's not where I'm going to predict him. I'm going to predict Saquon Barkley winds up with the Baltimore Ravens. And you line up in the same backfield with Lamar Jackson, Saquon Barkley, and then your receivers. Number 1 would be Zay Flowers. I think that's a lot of speed. That's a lot of fun in that offense with Mark Andrews hopefully being healthy at tight end. I'm going to say that the Ravens, after the whole J.K. Dobbins injuries and multiple injuries, they go make a move and they go get a running back this offseason, and they team up the elite speed of Saquon with the elite speed of Lamar Jackson.
All right, how about one of the more unsung pass rushers in the NFL? Not the Bills quarterback, Josh Allen, but the Jags defensive player, Josh Allen.
I'm going to say they franchise tag him. I think Josh Allen is back with Jacksonville. They need him back. He had a few games this year where he had 3 sacks in a game. He is enormous to their success, and I know the Jaguars did take a step back last year. I've been a big fan of Josh Allen ever since his days at Kentucky. Tremendous story. I think he gets franchise tagged. Maybe they get a long-term deal done, but he'll be back with the Jags bare minimum for next season.
Maybe Brian Burns. What's the future look like for Brian Burns in Carolina?
So a few years ago, Carolina was offered 2 first-round picks by the Rams, and they didn't do it because they thought he was a franchise player for them. Now, he is a franchise player for them, but this this organization right now doesn't have a direction. So I think now it behooves them to franchise tag Brian Burns and have one of these deals where it's a player who gets franchise tag, but now you finally pull the trigger and then you trade him and you don't ink him to a long-term extension. The Carolina Panthers are years and years away from winning. They messed up a few years ago by not taking the 2 first-round picks when the Rams were like, F those picks and just trade them off to the Rams. Now I think they trade him. Maybe you get back 1 first-round pick, which I think you could get. And we've seen a team like this do this before. when you go back to the DeForest Buckner trade, I forget the details of that deal, but I could see the Colts franchise tagging or trading for the franchise tag player in Brian Burns and then eventually getting a long-term deal done and parting ways with the number one pick in the process. And also remember, Indianapolis did better than what people thought this year, so their first-round pick isn't as bad or as good, maybe you would say, as what people thought it was going to be. So I will say Brian Burns gets tagged originally by the Panthers, but then the Panthers trade him to the AFC. They trade him to the AFC South, and he'll be a member of the Indianapolis Colts.
Another star running back, Derrick Henry. It looks like his time in Tennessee is over.
Yeah, that's definitely done. He said goodbye to all the fans after the game. He's not going to be coming back after their final game of the season. This could be a move for the Ravens to make, but since I already put Saquon in Baltimore, I think the Cowboys this offseason, they go star hunting, and I think they land another running back. I'm going to say Derrick Henry, a little bit past his prime, but still a very successful player and a player that still needs to be feared in this league. He joins up with the Dallas Cowboys this offseason. Give me Derrick Henry as the newest member of the Drama Dallas Choking Cowboys.
How about Stu's Raiders? Josh Jacobs.
Last year, I would not have predicted him to be back. But now with who the coach is in Antonio Pierce and how much he has talked about Josh Jacobs in a positive way, and that's who needs to be the identity for this team on the offensive side of the ball. Remember when it was that Jet Raider Monday night game, he was like, Robert Spillane needs to be the identity on defense, which was a little weird because we all thought it should have been Max Crosby. And then he did say that on offense, it needs to be Josh Jacobs. I think Josh Jacobs wants to stay with the Raiders. Josh Jacobs also wants to get paid. Thomas Telesco does give out big contracts. I'm going to say Josh Jacobs and the Raiders, they get a deal done where it's similar to Saquon. Whatever the total number is, doesn't really matter. It's what the guaranteed money is. I'm going to say Josh Jacobs staying with the Raiders.
Now, the Bengals have a lot of issues coming up with their wide receivers. Taj Boyd, obviously
Tyler
Boyd, obviously Jamar Chase, and this man, T. Higgins. What happened to T. Higgins?
I think they continue this marriage for one more year. As long as Joe Burrow is healthy, the Bengals are a bona fide Super Bowl contender. So you punt the salary decision down the road. You already took care of Burrow. You'll probably take care of Chase. T. Higgins is eventually going to be the odd man out, but I think you franchise tag him. He'll be back in Cincinnati next year on the franchise tag, even if that creates some complications in T. Higgins not being very happy with the tag.
Baker Mayfield, is he staying with the Bucs or going elsewhere?
Yes, I think Baker Mayfield stays with the Bucs, but I think he's not going to have someone else on his team, which is going to make Tampa Bay take a step back. We'll get to that in just a bit, but Baker back with the Bucs.
Now, Kirk Cousins staying in Minnesota, maybe going back home to Washington, or do you have another team in mind?
There is no I'm coming home moment for Kirk Cousins walking back in to the newly run Washington Commanders, who weren't even the Commanders when he was playing with them, but now they have Josh Harris and they don't have that pig Daniel Snyder. There's no you like that moment of coming home for one Kirk Cousins. I think he's done in Minnesota. And I believe Arthur Blank, who told us at the Super Bowl, he believes they're a quarterback away. I think the Falcons heavily pursue Kirk Cousins, and you have Kirk Cousins with Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London with Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson doing the coaching. Give me Kirk Cousins to the Dirty Birds. He's going to be joining the Falcons.
An interesting one is Calvin Ridley, a free agent with Jacksonville. If you remember when they made the trade with the Falcons, it was a conditional trade. If they don't re-sign him, the third-round pick goes to Atlanta. If they do re-sign him, Atlanta gets a second-round pick. So the Jaguars actually have an incentive not to re-sign Calvin Ridley.
And actually, I saw this as there's a technicality here. I saw this online. If they re-sign him before free agency begins, that's how the pick of the second-round pick goes their way. But if it happens after free agency opens, then it doesn't. So that tells me the Jaguars, even if they do bring him back, they're not going to do so until officially free agency opens. So you want my prediction here?
Yeah, what do you think?
And I actually thought Ridley had an extra year on his deal, but he doesn't. As Santa just said, he's going to be a free agent. This has all the making in the world of the Kansas City Chiefs, who have money to spend and didn't even play their best brands of football this past year, and it was still good enough to beat every other team in the NFL to win a championship. I'm going to say that the Chiefs go get a guy this year that they didn't have last year, and that's someone that was a 1,000-yard receiver. Kansas City lands Calvin Ridley on a 2-year deal with a bunch of guaranteed money, and next year you have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce getting a friend to the program in Calvin Ridley in Kansas City as they fully go for the three-peat.
Those are my Chiefs, baby. Yeah, give me Calvin Ridley. All right, last one.
Samter being a Chiefs fan is now becoming very insufferable. And
Hey,
I
listen,
think you are annoying Stu, too.
You know what? You picked on me. You picked on me. You picked on me all year long. You doubted my team. Every single Take
Your
5
team.
Wednesday, you had the Chiefs lower and lower and lower. And what did I tell you all year long? Don't doubt my Chiefs. And what'd you do? Doubted my Chiefs. And what'd they do? Back to back, baby.
Stu, can I make an early request for my 30th birthday that's coming up in August?
What do you got?
Just for a gift, can you get me a fly swatter? I may just swat Samter away a little bit.
Swatting me away isn't going to take away 2 championships from my boys. Last one. This guy has 10.
He wasn't even
straight-
a fan when they won 2 out of those 3 championships.
I don't even know who they are. The Kansas City what? This guy has 10 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. No other active player has more than 6. He is Mike Evans of the, potentially, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Is he staying in Tampa or is he gone?
Mike Evans and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should get a deal done. He should play for one team and one team only. But I don't trust the Buccaneers to give Mike Evans a long-term deal. He is like Mr. Buccaneer. He has won a Super Bowl with this team. As Samter said, every year in the league, he's had a 1,000-yard season. He will be a Pro Football Hall of Famer, and he'll be remembered as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. But I think this comes to a close. I do not think Mike Evans is back with the Bucs next year. And I do believe he's going to be teaming up with C.J. Stroud. And the Texans are going to get C.J. Stroud, a number 1 wide receiver. And you will have Mike Evans going to Houston this upcoming offseason. So how about that for some wide receiver predictions? Calvin Ridley going to the Chiefs, and then Mike Evans going to the Texans. The AFC just continues to get stronger. We'll preview the baseball season next. Former Yankees and member of the Cincinnati Reds, Paul O'Neill, will join us in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And right now we're going to talk a little golf. We're also going to talk a little baseball. The second annual Invited Celebrity Classic is a nationally televised PGA Tour Champions competition that features 78 PGA Tour champions and 40 sports and entertainment stars. It's from April 19th to the 21st. Tickets are free. Fans just need to register at www.invitedcelebrityclassic.com. You can also watch it live on the Golf Channel for all 3 days of competition. And now joining us on behalf of this is Paul O'Neill, the former big leaguer who played with the Reds and also the New York Yankees, a 5-time All-Star, also a 5-time World Series champion. Paul, always appreciate the time. Thanks so much for joining us, and how are you?
We're doing right. I mean, it's this time. I mean, Super Bowl's over. Now it's time to start talking baseball. So I appreciate it. And, it's always a good time of year. It brings back a lot of memories when, like I said, once that last play of the Super Bowl, you realize that the next season that's going to start is baseball.
How's your golf game, by the way, these days with this tournament coming up?
That's kind of a bad sore subject. I just lost in the club championship this weekend, but you know what? It is what it is. It's a weird game. Some days that ball will go in the hole, some days it won't. But it's kind of the natural progression for any athlete. Once you get out of the game, you can still compete in golf.
Did you at least have a good showing, and then you just lost it at the end, or was this bad from the start in the champions?
That putter of mine just did not work. I won 3 matches to get to the finals, which I was really happy about, and then I wilted, I guess. my putter wouldn't hit it straight.
Yeah, well, you won enough championships when you were a player, so I think there's a lot of people with a small violin probably right now hearing that the golf game hasn't been that great. Paul O'Neill is with us. So when we get to your Yankees, you have Aaron Judge and Juan Soto in the same lineup. Just how about your excitement to see those two guys day in and day out, hopefully, play in the same lineup for the Yankees?
Well, that was the big signing. Obviously, you had Ohtani, and then you had Soto. And, the Yankees were fortunate enough to get one of them. And, he's going to add so much to this team. He's a left-handed hitter. His on-base percentage is always been great. He said all the right things today in his press conference. And I think Aaron Judge is going to probably hit behind him where he's going to have tons of protection. And obviously, if he's on base a lot, it's going to give Aaron Judge a lot of opportunity. So, 2 of the premier hitters in the game in the same lineup, that's always exciting.
And if the Yankees are still the Yankees, I know that there is a year left on the Juan Soto deal. They'll find a way to ink him to a long-term extension and find a way to get that done. Where's your confidence that will ultimately happen and Soto will be here for the long term?
Well, I think a lot depends, obviously, on the type of year he has, how comfortable he is. I mean, if you've played in other cities and then you're playing with the Yankees, you do notice that the Yankees, it's a different animal. And I think that he's going to like that. And obviously, if he wins and is well received by the fan base here, then I can't see him wanting to go anywhere else. And it doesn't sound like, Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner or Randy Levine, it doesn't sound like they're concerned about a one and done for Soto. So, you look at what he can do this year for this team offensively, and, championship is on their mind. There's no doubt about it.
Do you think the Yankees need to add Blake Snell? I know that they've been linked to him, and that could be a potential destination.
It's kind of surprising that, he hasn't signed. And, anybody that could get him obviously would want him. You're just looking at a few guys. I mean, you brought Stroman in. And you know what you're getting there. I mean, you're going to get a lot of innings. A guy that keeps the ball in the ballpark for the most part. And he's a veteran pitcher. So, that's going to help. And I think that Rodon obviously is going to have a bounce-back year. It was kind of a wasted year last year with injuries. And, Garrett Cole obviously is the rock. And Nestor has an opportunity to come back. And Schmidt, showed signs of being really good last year. So, if healthy, and that's always the big if on any team, their rotation's pretty strong. But, if you can add Blake Snell, it's only going to get better.
And I'll tell you this, too, as Paul O'Neill is with us right now. I think most people are most excited to see what happens with the Dodgers this year. I can't wait to see how much better the Orioles can be with what they did last year, and then also the big move a few weeks ago to go get Corbin Burns.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't do a lot, and then they added a quality pitcher. But, they're a youthful team, and so they're going to get better. But, they're not going to sneak up on anybody this year because of what they did last year. So, the American League East should be very strong again this year. Toronto, you always wait for that breakout year because of their offense. And, there's so many surprises throughout the year, but a lot has to do with the health of these teams. And if you can keep your star players out on the field every day.
You've been on quite a few championship or bust teams. We know the Dodgers this year, anything short of winning the championship would be a failure. You add Ohtani, you add Yamamoto. For the Dodgers, is it the mental grind of this, which is the most curious part when you look at them this year, knowing that regardless of what they do in the regular season, people are not going to give them any credit until they find a way to hoist another commissioner's trophy?
Yeah, I mean, when you add names like that, obviously you're expected to do, great things. But, I've seen a lot of teams that just load up on talent and, it's kind of a misfit here. It just doesn't gel right. I'm not saying that the Dodgers did that, but, Ohtani is one of those players that you just don't see. They've got Mookie Betts, and they've added another great pitcher. So, they're expected, you probably pencil them in to make the playoffs. But, the short series and just getting to that point can be a grind because you basically know from opening day that, you're going to be there. And it's almost a waiting game to see if you can finish that deal. And, there'll be obstacles. I mean, not too many teams go through a year without anything going wrong.
The other thing I'll be curious, and maybe you give us the hitter's perspective of this, when you haven't seen someone in the United States in Major League Baseball, which everyone's now going to see Yamamoto, and you hear so much about him, how do you kind of prepare for when you go up against him with the very limited book about him?
Well, I mean, the best scouting report is always in your mind. How a guy has pitched you, what his stuff does. I mean, they have so many, vehicles to help hitters now, a batting machine to throw from the same arm angle, same pitches at certain pitches. You've got video to watch. But, again, if you have not faced a guy before, I always think that the pitcher kind of has the advantage. And, we're looking for a series down the road where the Yankees actually visit L.A. this year. But you know what? If you had to write it in right now that the Yankees and the Dodgers are in the World Series, I think it'll be a special year.
Talking to Paul O'Neill, wrapping up with the 5-time World Series champ. You look at Atlanta, right? They've won their World Series. The last 2 years, it hasn't gone their way, though, in the postseason. When you've had, like, failures like that, when you don't get the job done, how tough is it to bounce back the following season?
Well, it almost, and I also said a lot of times in 1997, after we won in 96, that was probably the worst loss that I remember. In 97, we got beat by the Indians. But I don't know that those next 3 years happen unless you have that, because you kind of get this fear of losing again, and you don't want it to happen again because you know the way it feels. So, they, again, a youthful team that is going to get better and better. And, they just seem to do everything right in that organization. And right now, they've got some superstars.
Mike Trout is under contract through 2030. I know he left the door open about his future. Isn't it best for all parties here, Paul, if he just requests a trade and they start to move on from Mike Trout?
Well, I think, losing Ohtani obviously was kind of a hint to him that they weren't going to throw all the chips in to try to win now. But Mike Trout is one of those guys that's, a future Hall of Famer. Do you want to see him in the playoffs with some team? Absolutely, because he's, one of the faces of MLB. So I always enjoy watching him. He's a great fit anywhere because athletically he does a ton of things on the field that a lot of players can't do.
I know that we've been talking a lot about the Yankees with you. Let me get one question in about the Reds, where you started your career. How about your early impressions on the excitement and the entertainment that Ellie De La Cruz has brought to Major League Baseball?
Well, I mean, he hit the ground running. I mean, he took off, and that team took off. I mean, they were going nowhere when they brought him up, and all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, they were in a playoff hunt. So talent-wise, obviously, he has a ton of talent. He's going to make adjustments. Pitchers are going to make adjustments, but he has a ton of tools to work with. The Reds, and David Bell, they really turned their year around last year. They've added some pitching, so good things could happen. It's a tough ballpark to pitch in. It's kind of a home run paradise, but they're in a division where they can definitely compete.
So we know you're going to be putting in the putting reps. You're going to be trying to improve that facet of your golf game from now until April 19th. Right around the corner. Today is February 19th, so we got 2 months until this tournament gets underway in Texas. Tell us a little bit more about the Invited Celebrity Classic.
Well, anytime you can get together with guys and play with guys who really know how to play the game and the ex-pros, they're fun events. But until you show up and you get a little nerves on that first tee, you just think it's all fun. But most people, once they get on the course or anything, whether it's golf, pickleball, tennis, basketball, anything, once you get going, you get competitive and you want to win.
So last thing I'll ask you, we're a national show, obviously, being here on CBS Sports Radio. Paul O'Neill is with us, but down the hall is WFAN, the legendary local New York radio station, and their afternoon show of Tiki Barber, Evan Roberts, and Sean Marash. Last week, they had an A-Rod day, and they want A-Rod's number retired by the Yankees. Would you like to see number 13 retired by the Yankees and have a plaque for him in Monument Park?
Well, Alex Rodriguez, obviously one of the better players that played in his generation. So, whether because he wasn't a Yankee his whole career or whether that comes into factor, I don't know. I mean, I have all the respect in the world for the talent he had and the numbers he put up and, the way he plays baseball. But, as far as anything like that, I mean, the Yankees usually do everything right. And I have all the respect for that organization, too. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, separating the Monument Park, just getting into the Hall of Fame stuff. Yeah, I think it's a problem, and I know it's up to the writers that Major League Baseball has right now because they're kind of trying to tell us that, like, some guys, they deserve to get in that were accused of using steroids, but other guys aren't. I just think it's a mess when it comes to the Hall of Fame, and I think if you have the numbers, whether it was clean or not, you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. How about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a cloudy, kind of situation because of what happened during that era. I have a ton of respect for the guys that are in the Hall of Fame that were never, associated with any of that. And, growing up a baseball fan, when I look at, some of my heroes, Willie Mays and Hank Aaron, Roberto Clemente, I mean, those guys just played baseball and nothing else was ever brought to attention that they did anything wrong. So I still look at, the great players are great players, and it's just the way it is.
For more information, invitedcelebrityclassic.com. Check out the tournament that airs on the Golf Channel from April 19th to the 21st. He's Paul O'Neill. Paul, good luck. Hopefully you hit some big putts coming up in April.
You guys have a good day.
Thanks so much. There he is, Paul O'Neill, joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I said this right when the Hall of Fame announcement came out this year, and I'll say it again. This just shows you the problem with the Hall of Fame, is that you had a guy like Mike Piazza, who voters wanted to wait based off speculation. But then Pudge Rodriguez gets in his first year of eligibility. And John Heyman didn't vote for Piazza, but voted for Pudge. And Pudge has been on the record when he was asked, did you ever do steroids? He says, only God knows the answer to that one. It's just such a hypocritical game on guys. Did you like him or did you not? And that's the guys that end up getting the Hall of Fame. Like Big Papi. I love Big Papi. He should absolutely be a Hall of Famer. He easily gets in, but Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens can't. So it's all just hypocritical BS. I think if you have the numbers, regardless if you put a syringe in your body or not, and you put steroids in your body or not, I'm not saying I don't care, but I think we need to accept what Major League Baseball allowed back then. And quite frankly, if you have the numbers, in my opinion, you should be a Hall of Famer. All righty, we'll take a break. We'll come on back. We'll update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We call this segment the News Brief. But first up, with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flag.
Well, the Great American Race, the Daytona 500, getting underway after it had to be pushed back because of heavy rains over the weekend. It's a different time now in New England, and another staple is moving on, with the Patriots reportedly set to release defensive lineman Lawrence Guy. Jacques Vaughn became the third NBA coach fired this year, let go by the Nets after wins in only 8 of the last 31 games. His latest loss by 50 in Boston in the first half finale, and Kevin Ollie reportedly taking over in the interim. Mike Conley and the Timberwolves reportedly agree on a 2-year, $21 million extension. Lots of hockey today, and a wild one concerning the Wild in Minnesota, which has scored 5 times in the third and lead the Canucks 8-6. Joel Eriksson-Ek with a hat trick for Minnesota. JT Miller with 1 for Vancouver. After 1, the Red Wings and Kraken even at 1 in the first. The Jets with a 3-2 lead over the Flames. Also right now in the first, it's the Oilers in front of the Coyotes 2-1. Golden Knights lead the Sharks 2-0. And earlier, the Ducks, Bruins, and Maple Leafs all winners. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey there, I'm Bart Winkler. Let's hang out weeknights here on CBS Sports Radio for my show, The Bart Winkler Show. Weeknights 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. We'll get to the news brief in just a second, but I just want to do one quick touch on the Stadium Series from over the weekend. And the only reason I'm going to bring this up, well, my Rangers put 6 past Sorokin yesterday, and they had that epic comeback, which was awesome at MetLife Stadium between the Islanders and the Rangers. But the night before, you had Devils and Flyers, and a lot of people asked me, are you going to go to the game? And I said no, because you have like a 75, 80,000 seat stadium, and I didn't think the vantage point was going to be great if you were in the crowd. Now, Stu wasn't at the Rangers-Islanders game because Stu is a big-time Devils fan. But Stu, how was the Devils-Flyers game being in person at an 80,000-seat stadium of MetLife Stadium on a Saturday evening?
It was really cool. It was also really cold. In terms of the sight lines, so we had pretty decent seats, like in terms of being close to the rink. It was definitely very different.
Big money, Stu. That's what I just learned.
It was definitely very different. Like, you're just not as on top of it, so being kind of like level with the ice, you kind of lose the puck at times, but it was a good experience, and I enjoyed it, but it was very different than a normal hockey game.
The way that it was described to me, it almost felt as if you were at a college football game. Now, that the person that said that was at the Rangers-Islanders game. So you've been to college football games before, Stu, and that's just a certain type of environment. Like even the national championship, sometimes the big events like national championship games or Super Bowls, the environment isn't great. I will say The national championship game this past year for Michigan and Washington was basically a Michigan home game. The atmosphere was awesome. It was a party. And at the Super Bowl this year, I thought the Chiefs and 49ers fans, and there's more 49ers fans than Chiefs fans at the Super Bowl, but I thought the atmosphere was great at the Super Bowl. But that's what I heard from someone that I knew that went, a buddy of mine that grew up that is an Islanders fan. He said, it felt like I was at a college football game. Did you at all sense that on Saturday night between the Devils and the Flyers?
Definitely. It was very, fans were very into it. It was the Devils' home game. They did all the Devils' home game things they do with the songs and all that. So that was kind of cool, but it definitely felt, I would say like a college football game is a good comparison for it.
Now, we trust your music senses on this show. You are the big-time Swiftie on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Stuart Kovacs, when you think of Taylor Swift, I think of Travis Kelce, I think of Donna Kelce, I think of Jason Kelce, I think of Kylie Kelce, and then I also now think of Stuart Kovacs as well. You are the expert on this show with all things Taylor Swift. I actually think you're a bigger Taylor Swift fan than your actual girlfriend is, but I don't need you to respond to that because that's going to cause a lot of problems in the Kovacs home. Now, with all that being said, there was a musical act on Saturday night, correct, Amundo?
There was, yes.
Jonas Brothers?
Yes.
Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs trending up. Yeah, I wouldn't pay to see the Jonas Brothers, but the fact that they were there and it was like a free way to see the Jonas Brothers, fine.
How long did they play for?
Before the game, they played for maybe like 50 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And they played in the second intermission as well.
Oh, that's a
they
good
played
amount
like 10
of
minutes.
Jonas Brothers.
Yeah.
That was the least convincing, though, ever endorsement I've heard from anybody. Your voice kind of cracked, and you were like, maybe I just have to say they're good, but you don't have to. It seemed like it was an acquired taste where at first you probably didn't like them. Then as it did go on throughout the day, you were like, okay, this takes my mind off being freezing cold. So
exactly.
I could just watch something else, and it was the Jonas
Which
Brothers.
I definitely needed because it was pretty cold.
Okay. Anyway, let's update some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. Let's get to a news brief.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
So my buddy Channing Crowder, along with Ryan Clark and Fred Taylor on their great Pivot podcast, they had Antonio Pierce on, and Antonio Pierce talked about how it appeared that Cliff Kingsbury was going to be his OC, and then he ended up bolting for the Washington Commanders. Here's Antonio Pierce.
National Football League, NFL, not for long. So you're right. I thought we had a guy, but not for long. Hold on. Till you put pen to paper, man, that's the one thing I learned. No different than us in free agency, right? Gotcha. Teams are recruiting, new things are going on. Listen, Mac Johnson pretty good. I guess I think he can still dish it out a little bit. If I'm losing the Magic, I'm okay with that, right? And then at the end of the day, listen, man, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. That's fine.
So I guess that is Antonio Pierce's way of saying that we thought we had a deal done, but nothing was inked, and then Magic Johnson just gave Cliff Kingsbury a lot more cash than what the Raiders were offering or were willing to offer. That's how I kind of gather it, because if he was ready to go to the Raiders and that seemed like a done deal and then somebody else popped up, I have to think that's from a money perspective. Now, do the Commanders believe, since Cliff Kingsbury was at USC, that they're going to be able to trade up in the draft and get Caleb Williams to work with Cliff Kingsbury? I think that's a far-fetched idea, because I do believe Williams is going to be the number one overall pick, and he's been going to the Chicago Bears. But the part that I just wonder is, why was Cliff Kingsbury a hot commodity? Like, he's a good offensive mind, but in the NFL, his teams were good in the first half of the season, disastrous in the second half of the season. So I'm not saying I'm surprised that there was a market for Cliff Kingsbury, but the way that this looked like it did go down, where he was going to be with the Raiders and then, boom, Magic threw him a bag of cash and he said no, that's just the weird part, that you needed to throw him a big bag of cash in order to get the services of one Cliff Kingsbury. Here is Micah Parsons on the Stephen A. Smith Show on what the Cowboys' defensive needs are this offseason.
Look at every team that kind of was in that Final Four. Who did they have? Who did Baltimore have? A great linebacker core, right? Who did San Fran have? Great linebacker core. KC, I said, we need to get another bigger linebacker who's going to come down and I said, we need to get a super big old 330, can't move. Because I saw the way Chris Jones affected that Super Bowl, and I was like, my God, like,
need a big boy.
And not even just Chris Jones, Mike Pennell. But we need to get one of them big old, nasty pass rushing, get going.
So I'm not saying he's wrong. It's just amazing how much the Cowboys talked this offseason. And we benefited from it. Micah Parsons came on this show at the Super Bowl. We did basically 5 million views when he was trashing TJ Watt, even though everything he said I thought was completely wrong. But the Cowboys make themselves so available in the offseason. I would change the approach, but that's not going to change because Jerry Jones values the headlines and the noise more than actually winning football games. But even if you got a big guy up front, yes, it improves your team. It's not the reason why you got embarrassed on both sides of the ball up against the Green Bay Packers. The Cowboys have the talent to win, but I don't think they have the mental toughness to win. And now we've seen multiple times in the postseason where Dallas was just not ready for the big game, and they inexcusably didn't show up a few years ago against the Niners, and then this past year up against Green Bay. Here's Cam Newton on Brock Purdy and the game manager comments, and did he think he was a game manager in the Super Bowl? This courtesy of the 4th and 1 podcast.
Brock Purdy did not have a bad game.
Okay.
To that point, field goal versus touchdown, that's not Brock Purdy. Why the did they receive the ball first? When you know what you have to get, you know you have to get a touchdown. You know you have to get a field goal. And if you're ever in a position to have to go for it, you can go for it. The 49ers, they were just trying to get points. And that is not Brock Purdy's fault. That's bad coaching.
Yeah, when I think Cam's right. When I look back at the Super Bowl, and I was okay with Shanahan taking the ball first, but the team not being prepared for overtime, that's a different story. I look back at coaching and the star players on the Niners offense, Debo and Kittle, and even to some extent Ayuk, not having big days. I don't think that was a problem of Brock Purdy. I don't. I thought Brock Purdy played a fine Super Bowl. I thought he was good. He wasn't great. He wasn't horrible. He was solid. He was good. I can't look back at that Super Bowl and say he's the reason why they lost. McCaffrey put the ball on the turf. Shanahan didn't have his team ready to go for overtime. Kittle did nothing. Debo did nothing. And Ayuk didn't get targeted enough. It's coaching. It's coaching, and the offense let them down in a big spot. And usually when the offense lets you down in a big spot, that could be directly correlated to the quarterback. This is one of the instances where it's not. Here is Jaylen Brown on the dunk contest. I thought he was extremely disappointed.
It takes some energy to go out there and do tricks and perform. And then on any given night, like, you still got to go and provide for your team. But I think ultimately just, this media era, I think some players is afraid to make it into a meme or anything like that. Like, I wanted to come out and have fun with it, and that's what I did.
So I respect Jaylen Brown for at least participating in the dunk contest, because the fact that he was the biggest star in the dunk contest is a joke. Like, Jaylen Brown's a really good player, but you could get bigger stars than Jaylen Brown, but he's not wrong. And it just shows how soft the NBA has really become. And LeBron, he's a big reason for it. They're afraid now, players, to participate in the dunk contest because someone's going to troll them on social media if it doesn't go their way. Well, how about Steph Curry? He did the three-point contest with Sabrina Ionescu. Imagine if he would have lost, he would have got trolled, but he didn't care. So how about we just get tougher players? Steph's a tough player. I give Steph a lot of credit. But the fact that players are afraid to become a meme on social media if they fail in the dunk contest, it's a joke. Like Jaylen Brown, he failed in the dunk contest. Is he getting dragged? No. It's ridiculous. Here is Jason Tatum with a shocking admission before the All-Star game.
Russell Westbrook is the only player in history to win back-to-back All-Star MVPs. Can we see it tonight? What you thinking?
We can, because I ain't going to lie. I met Larry Bird tonight for the first time. I never met Larry Bird in my life, so I got to meet him, and that just gave me, I was anxious. So I got some juices flowing for the game right now.
That's NBA on TNT. I know that Larry Bird isn't the warmest individual on the planet, but how is he, with the Celtics connection, how has Jason Tatum never met Larry Bird when we all know Jason Tatum's a great player? That's wild. Finally, here's Rick Pitino. He rips apart his St. John's team.
We are so non-athletic that we can't guard anybody without fouling. And really it's not about losing. Because even in winning, when we watch the film, I see unathletic plays. I see people that don't handle the ball, that's just interested in taking quick shots. So it's been a disappointing year. I don't think we were going to win the first year anyway. Not a whole lot we can do, but it's this has been the most unenjoyable experience I've had since I've been coaching.
Well, he assembled this team. right? There is a transfer portal. There is NIL. I think that's a bad look for Rick Pitino, and he's an older coach, and I don't know if that coaching style works anymore in the transfer portal and NIL era anymore. I get it. It's the my way or the highway type of approach. We've seen a lot of coaches retire from basketball because they've not been able to adapt to what college basketball is now. And it seems like Pitino has already regretted taking this job. And if I'm paying Pitino, I'm not happy with them after that response. And I guess now the best we could ever hope for is St. John's maybe just one of these years to make the NCAA tournament under Pitino before he calls it quits. But man, that seems like a guy who wants to quit right now with how upset he is and the way that he explained that after the game in another St. John's collapse and loss.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right. That's what I'm talking about. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. So I was reading this article over the weekend. Jerry Dulac, longtime Steelers reporter for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and he said that there appears to be some internal division that maybe Mason Rudolph should be the starter given his performance at the end of the season. Now, it is important to note here, Mason Rudolph is not guaranteed to be back on the Steelers next year. Mason Rudolph is set to become a free agent in March. So Mason Rudolph could get a better offer to be a backup somewhere else. I would have a tough time believing anyone is going to give him starting QB, like a starting QB tag, but maybe he could go somewhere and he could go compete for the starting job, as maybe there's an organization that has a stopgap or they're drafting someone. They don't want that guy to start until next year, or maybe a team's going to punt this year. They need someone to play the quarterback position, and Mason Rudolph can be serviceable. I don't think Mason Rudolph is a 17-game regular season starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't. But I also don't think Kenny Pickett is the answer in Pittsburgh. And there's a saying that if teams believe they have 2 quarterbacks, that means you have no quarterbacks. And it's not always a situation where there is Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love, or there is Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes. That doesn't always happen. You know that the way that that saying is meant, it's for 2 guys that get hyped up and no one actually believes the hype around them. And the fact that the Steelers already have this division, an internal division in their organization, do we stick with Kenny Pickett, who was a first-round pick 2 years ago, or do we bring back Mason Rudolph because we think Mason Rudolph is the right answer for this team with what he did down the stretch? That is more of an indictment on Kenny Pickett. And this shows me another reason, and I know Steelers fans that defend Kenny Pickett and are Pickett stans, they will end up saying, oh, look at all the game-winning drives that he has. He has like 7 or 8 game-winning drives in his career. Sometimes stats are for losers. And I'm not saying that that's not important, that when the game's on the line, that, you know, you need a quarterback that could win it. But when you watch the totality, and I know it's an extremely premature career so far of Kenny Pickett, who really only had 1 really good year when you look at his college career, and that's when he was the ACC Player of the Year at Pitt, and Pitt did a phenomenal job in his final season there that elevated him up all those draft boards and made him the only quarterback to go in that first round. But when you have people in your organization leaking out that there's division between Rudolph and Pickett in the organization, and some guys prefer Rudolph over Pickett, that is damaging to Kenny Pickett. And I don't think when you watch Kenny Pickett that he's a guy that I look at and I say he's a franchise quarterback. And it'd be one thing if you're in the NFC, but since you're in the AFC, You can't just have a guy. You can't have someone that the apex may be just being a serviceable quarterback. And I don't even think Kenny Pickett will be a very good quarterback. You need a great quarterback in the AFC. Like, look around the AFC East. You have Aaron Rodgers. You have Josh Allen. You know, Tua Tagovailoa, I don't think he's great. In the AFC North, you have Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. Lamar has won 2 MVPs. He can't win a Super Bowl. Look at what the Browns made from a financial commitment to Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, no one's thinking he's going to get back to being a top 7 quarterback in football right now. You look at the AFC South, Trevor Lawrence, 1 year good, 1 year regressed, even though he won't say he regressed. Anthony Richardson, unknown. He got hurt, but he was looking promising before he got hurt. CJ Stroud looks like he's going to be a star for the foreseeable future. We all know what the standard is in the AFC and in football. AFC West, you have Patrick Mahomes. Justin Herbert, I believe, will be a great quarterback when it's all said and done. So in the AFC in particular, you have to have a great quarterback. In the NFC, you could have a good quarterback like Brock Purdy and get to a Super Bowl. You could have a good quarterback like Jared Goff and get to an NFC title game. But there is a big difference in the AFC and NFC in the overall quality and the overall number of elite and great quarterbacks than compared to the NFC. So I never believe, and you could say maybe it's early to give up, but if this is where we are 2 years in, that Mason Rudolph, who's done everything in Pittsburgh, right? Like, he's been giving so many times since he came in at the end of the season and the offense actually showed a pulse. Since now people believe that Mason Rudolph gives them a better chance to win over Kenny Pickett, it tells me everything I need to know about Kenny Pickett. But with that being said, it doesn't mean that Mason Rudolph should be the starting quarterback next year. It means that neither Kenny Pickett nor Mason Rudolph should be the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you now need to, with the team that has a lot of talented players on defense, maybe Deontay Johnson gets traded this offseason on offense, but you have George Pickens, who's a pain in the ass, but he's a heck of a wide receiver. You have a good 1-2 punch in the run game. You have enough where you were just a playoff team last year without a quarterback. But if you ever want to get back to winning playoff games, and the Steelers haven't won a playoff game since 2016, you got to improve the quarterback position. Because even when Buffalo wasn't at their best because they had Josh Allen, they were able to beat you in the postseason. And it's only going to get tougher and tougher in your own division and also in your own conference, even with the added postseason spot the last few years, where now 7 teams get in compared to 6 teams in each conference to continuously do this. And I know Mike Tomlin is a heck of a coach. Mike Tomlin, right, you know the numbers. This team probably shouldn't have made the playoffs this year, and they made the playoffs. He's never had a below 500 season, but they don't have a quarterback right now. Now, here's just something I'll toss out there, because it's easy for Zach Gelb to get on the radio, and it's easy for me to say, all right, Mason Rudolph nor Kenny Pickett should be the starting quarterback this year. And I could give you the names of guys that I think should be the starting quarterback for the Steelers next season. I think Russell Wilson would be a fine option. I think Kirk Cousins would be a fine option. I think Justin Fields would be a fine option via trade. And we talked about this before, right? Kirk would probably be the most appealing. Then it would be Justin Fields, and then it would be Russell Wilson out of those 3. Because you got to remember, I know people are down on Russell Wilson. I'm not telling you Russell Wilson's a great quarterback anymore. But Russell Wilson's better than Kenny Pickett. Russell Wilson is better than Mason Rudolph. So if Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph, regardless, are just stopgap guys anyway, and you're going to continue the stopgap thing, maybe you should go get Russell Wilson to be your stopgap while you go draft someone and get a younger player in there, and at least you could learn from someone that's had success in this league like Russell Wilson. I don't think Russell Wilson's a bum right now. I don't think he's great. I still think he could be above average in this league. And you got to remember, inevitably when the Broncos do cut him, the Denver Broncos, since they owe him so much money with his extension not even kicking in yet, Russell Wilson's going to be playing on a very cheap, and I mean an extremely cheap and team-friendly deal next year, because now he's trying to save his legacy and the way people view him. So those are 3 quarterbacks right away that I think, okay, would be good options in Pittsburgh. But then at the end of the Jerry Dulac report, and I was reading this via Pro Football Talk, the Steelers are not interested in bringing in a quarterback who wants to be a starter. And then Florio pointed out that earlier this month, team president Art Rooney II didn't rule it out. So let's just take this report from Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, who's a longtime, well-respected reporter. There's internal division in the organization that maybe Mason Rudolph should be the starter over Kenny Pickett when Mason Rudolph is a free agent. Okay, we broke that down. Now, the back end of this report is Dulac saying that the Steelers are not interested in bringing in a quarterback who wants to be the starter. So they're basically saying, and I would imagine that the person that said this is more of the Kenny Pickett fan, that they want to bring in competition for Kenny Pickett, but they're probably not confident enough that Kenny Pickett could beat out the competition. So we don't want a competitor that strives to be a starter, that needs to be guaranteed the starter. So if that's the case, and let's just operate that this is true, and who knows who voice it is, so maybe it doesn't mean anything, well, then Russell Wilson's not going there. Justin Fields isn't going there, and Kirk Cousins isn't going there. So you could cross all those names off the list. So if this is right, that there's division in the organization about Rudolph and Pickett, and not only that, Jerry Dulac is saying that the Steelers are not interested in bringing in a quarterback who wants to be a starter. You know who the name is that could replace Mason Rudolph to compete with Kenny Pickett? And now watch, this guy's going to be floating around all the AFC North teams. It could actually be Joe Flacco. Now, Joe Flacco wants to play, and you can't tell me, oh, Joe Flacco's a Raven, so he'll never play for the Steelers. He just led the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs. And you know Joe Flacco's not going to return to Cleveland next year because they're giving the keys back to Deshaun Watson because of all the picks that they gave up for him and also the guaranteed contract. So for Joe Flacco, who probably won't be guaranteed a starting quarterback position anywhere in the league this year, if you're Joe, wouldn't you go to Pittsburgh? You're probably right now a better quarterback than Kenny Pickett, even with the age difference. And you just bank that Kenny will be the starter for day one. And ultimately, he will fail. He will struggle. They'll be like slightly below 500. And then the last month and a half of the season, the fans of Pittsburgh won't be waving their terrible towels anymore in support of Kenny Pickett. They'll want someone else. And then you'll have another opportunity in back-to-back years to save a team in the AFC North and lead them to the playoffs. So that's going to be the quarterback off this Jerry Dulac report, if all things are true, that the Steelers are going to bring in to compete with Kenny Pickett. It's going to be like someone like a Joe Flacco. And that actually, it's not something that if I'm a Steelers fan, I'm jumping up and down, but that's just the way, Samter, that I kind of read into this report, where in one breath it's, hey, there's internal division with the guy that's about to be a free agent and Kenny Pickett. We don't know. All right, some guys are Pickett guys, some guys are Mason Rudolph guys. There's a big contingent of people that want Mason Rudolph to be the starter. But if you keep on waiting on Mason Rudolph, maybe Rudolph goes somewhere else, and then on the back end, they're not interested in bringing a quarterback who wants to be a starter? Doesn't that sound like Joe Flacco to me? This sounds like the big move the Steelers are going to make this offseason, the quarterback position to create some competition for Kenny Pickett is going to be Joe Flacco. Elite Joe. Bring him back.
Listen, I love the idea of it in the sense of like what the Steelers need and what Joe Flacco can provide. But man, I mean, like in our lifetime, has there been, especially during those mid-2000s when Joe was with the Ravens?
Yeah, it was great.
Was there a more like legitimate rivalry of pure hatred where two teams legitimately wanted to hurt each other and just legitimately hated each other? Right? Like 49ers Cowboys, good rivalry, right? Chiefs Raiders, good rivalry. I get it. But the rivalry that we've seen in football that really hated each other is Ravens Steelers. It would actually kind of hurt to see Joe Flacco in a Steelers uniform. Any other quarterback going to any other team probably wouldn't matter. But Ravens and Steelers, you can't do it.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I don't think Joe Flacco, and I'm not speaking for Joe. This is just the way that I kind of viewed him when he was on this show. and we asked him about the Ravens, I don't think he gives a rat's ass about the current day of the Baltimore Ravens. He hasn't been on that team since 2018. Yes, Joe Flacco hated the Steelers when he was a member of the Baltimore Ravens. I'm not saying he's all warm and fuzzy with them right now, but Joe Flacco still wants to play. We just saw Joe Flacco go to the dog pound and be a part of the Cleveland Browns inside the AFC North. I get it. It's not the Steelers. But the Ravens and Bengals were also nasty too. Like if the Bengals wanted him last year, he would have gone to the Bengals as well. Joe Flacco just wants to keep on playing. He just turned 39 in January. He knows that from an NFL standpoint, he's on borrowed time. He doesn't have that many years left. It was crazy what he just did this year, so he wants to capitalize and keep on playing. I don't think any team right now is going to say, Joe, you're the starting quarterback from day one of the season. So from a Joe standpoint, I think the Steelers do make sense because you got to kind of go to a spot where you don't believe in the starting quarterback and you don't think the starting quarterback is going to be any good. Does anyone think Kenny Pickett is going to be any good? I don't. So you go to a team that has a playoff caliber roster, and it's tough to do this from Joe's standpoint, and also you don't think the quarterback's any good, and at least it gives you a chance, at least it gives you an opportunity. And there's a chance, maybe, I think it's unlikely, that Kenny Pickett starts game one, and at the end of the year, right, the third year and the third time was the charm, and maybe he turns out to being the first-round pick that they thought he was. But I don't think that's likely. And, where else is Joe going to go? Miami? Like, maybe that's a place if Tua gets hurt again, but they have Mike White as a backup. I'd rather have Joe Flacco over Mike White, but they already made the financial commitment. I don't think there's a lot of teams out there.
I got a list of teams that would make sense for Joe.
So just give me the team. I'll tell you yes or no. If it's better than Pittsburgh.
Titans.
No, not better than Pittsburgh.
Raiders.
Yeah. You know what? No. The Steelers just made the playoffs. The Raiders didn't. But it's not a bad destination because they don't have a quarterback right now.
Broncos.
Nah, he already did that. He already went to Denver. That's not happening again.
It's different, though.
The Steelers are better than the Broncos.
Sure. Now, if Kirk Cousins doesn't go to the Falcons,
That's a great one.
How about the Falcons?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to say Minnesota.
No, I was so first, if Kirk Cousins doesn't go to the Falcons and stays in Minnesota, Falcons have an opening.
Yeah, that would definitely be a good one.
And then on the contrary, like you were thinking, if Kirk Cousins does leave, then you have the Vikings job open.
Vikings. I would say the Vikings and the Falcons, they may not be better teams than the Steelers, but it's also in the NFC.
Now we got three other teams.
Oh, my God. I never thought we were going to be doing Joe Flacco Destination Day here
so
on the
here
Zach
we go.
Gelb Show.
Three other teams, all right? Now, all three of these teams are likely to draft a quarterback 1, 2, 3 in the draft. Pats, Commanders, Bears. But if you're Joe Flacco, you got one more year. You could be the starting quarterback mentor, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. Well, probably not Jaden Daniels. I can't imagine Joe Flacco's going to be able to teach Jaden Daniels much with his legs. But you just never know. Have him there as your starter until he gets supplanted. If you're Joe Flacco, maybe you have a year starting while you mentor.
No, and here's why. Caleb Williams ready to play right now. Drake May's ready to play right now. Jaden Daniels ready to play right now. If they were more of a project that was like Anthony Richardson was viewed as a project. People thought he was going to sit a year. He was a starting quarterback from day one until he got hurt. I do not think Joe Flacco would go to either of those three places because I don't think any of those teams are ever going to give him an opportunity to play. And Joe just wants a chance. He don't want to be a backup quarterback. No one wants to be a backup quarterback. But you got to be realistic where you are at in your career. And his stock's in a better part now where it was a year ago. And still no one's going to guarantee you being a starting quarterback. That would be fun. Him in Pittsburgh. Coming in week 14 to replace a struggling Kenny Pickett. And then you get a Steelers-Ravens playoff game in Baltimore where Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh choke another playoff game. And maybe you get Joe Flacco and all the fans chanting, Joe, 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 as he upsets the Baltimore Ravens. Then you have Ravens fans saying, get Flacco back. He was always an elite quarterback. All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. here's Zach Gelb.
All righty, Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Paul O'Neill joined us about an hour ago. We hear he's struggling a little bit on the putting green. I think he'll be okay because once he's done putting and once he's done playing golf, I just found out he has his own beer. Paul O'Neill recently relaunched his IPA beer, appropriately named Warrior 21. Warrior 21 is the first hazy Northeast-style IPA to ever be brewed in collaboration with a professional baseball player, the first beer to be brewed in collaboration with the Yankees player, and the first beer of ever to be brewed in collaboration with a World Series champion. So how about that from Paul O'Neill, who joined us earlier? We just got sent along that information. So, Paul, even though the golf game is struggling a little bit, as you mentioned, you could find a way to just drink away the sorrows with a little of the IPA beer that he has out, Warrior 21. And it will make him tough. You have a Warrior 21 is the beer name. That's going to make you tough.
Or maybe that's why he's struggling on the greens, because he's having a couple of the Warrior 21s before he hops on with the putter.
That is true. Now, I am going on 2 golf trips, or quasi-golf trips. I'm going on 2 bachelor parties. That's why I'm out Thursday, Friday this week, and Thursday, Friday next week.
Back-to-back bachelor parties?
So I didn't do a great scheduling on my behalf. Both of my friends, and these are 2 close friends, like one of my closest school friends and then one of my closest childhood friends ever. They reached out to me last year, and they were like, we want you to come in the bachelor party. Your schedule is very difficult. We want to do the bachelor party in football season. And I said, well, unfortunately, I won't be able to attend your bachelor party because it's very tough for me to take off on a Thursday or a Friday of football season. I just can't do it. And then also I work on Sundays too in football season. So what? I was just going to parachute in for the Saturday of the bachelor party and that was going to be it?
Listen, you know what? If you missed a Thursday and Friday during football season, we would survive.
No, well, that's you saying that. That's trust me. Management would not be happy with me. And I would not be happy with me missing a Thursday or Friday towards the end of football season. Both of these would have been towards the later part of the football season.
They didn't seem to care when I took those days off.
I think there's a little difference here. You are not wrong. Samter wants to go away a weekend between, after the NFC, AFC championship games and the Super Bowl. Management goes, all right, tough, deal with it. It's fine. Now, I did that. They would probably say, no, we're going to reject your vacation days. So, all kidding aside, I told both my buddies it ain't happening if you want me to go. And I'm like, don't schedule it around me. I won't be offended. And then one of my buddies said, well, when can you do in February? I'm like, well, I need to be here the week after the Super Bowl. Like, Super Bowl happens on Sunday, I need to be there that week. So then one of my friends said, okay, pencil us in for this weekend. Then the other friend tried to pencil us in for that same weekend, but I told them I already had another bachelor party scheduled. So do the last weekend of February leading into March. So that's what happened. But anyway, we are golfing 2 days in Orlando and 1 day in Puerto Rico. And you could bet your ass, Samter, if Paul O'Neill wants to send me some of this beer, I will be more than happy to be drinking some brewskis on the golf course. And also, I'm at the point where I'm comfortable with my golf game. I know my golf game is just not that good. I am actually, Paul could use a tip or two for me because I am a great putter. But off the tee, everyone sees me and like, oh, you probably hit the ball a country mile. My golf game off the tee is maybe the most inaccurate thing ever. I will either hit the ball very far or the ball just will go nowhere. You know what? I'll say this on the radio. I think it's a good line. My golf game has erectile dysfunction, is what I would say. Because the golf ball sometimes is just very low into the ground and goes far, or sometimes it just goes, maybe after some enhancements, some swing juice, a.k.a. beer, it goes very high up into the air. So that's the way that I would break down my golf game right now.
It's not a visual I needed to have in my head on a Monday.
I didn't say I had those problems. I'm not doing endorsements like some other hosts.
I'm just imagining you swinging around a limp club, flopping around and like a little spaghetti. No wonder you're not hitting the ball very far. It's like, bloop.
My golf game, my one friend said that about my driving part of my golf game, and I'm like, yeah. That's how I just knew it was a low moment.
And by the way, Orlando and Puerto Rico is like Sheboygan and Jamaica. Like, what are we doing? Orlando and Puerto Rico. Like, those, you cannot get any more different.
Oh, it's 2 different people's bachelor parties.
But not just that, it's 2 complete. It's like going to Cleveland and then taking a trip to Paris.
No.
Like, what are you doing?
So you're saying Puerto Rico's more like Cleveland, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, Puerto Rico's awesome, and Orlando is like. I mean, unless you guys are going to Disney, I can see you some like mini Mickey Mouse years.
We are not. So for the
Epcot, maybe.
So for the Orlando bachelor party, I'm a part of the itinerary planning committee. We are going to a taco place on Thursday night. Friday, we are golfing during the day. We have a chef coming to the house on Friday night to cook us dinner. Saturday, we're during the day. Oh, we're doing paintballing. Saturday at night, we're going to some fancy schmancy dinner. Saturday evening, we're going to some like bowling alley type of thing, like fun, boozy bowling alley. And then Sunday, we're going to play golf, and then everyone's going to get on the plane and leave.
Can you do any of that stuff anywhere?
Well,
like if you're going to go to Orlando, if you're going to go to a destination for a bachelor party, you do something that's specific to that town.
I'm also giving you afternoon drive, daytime, Zach Gelb. If I was like Scott Farrell, Shake It Up on CBS Sports Radio, and I was doing the nighttime, there's probably an activity or two that I'm leaving out of the itinerary. All right? There's probably a conversation or two that will not be settled.
You know, I have a very naive mind and a very, PG-13 kind of head.
We're just going to play patty cake.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure what you're referring to or what you're implying. Can you get into the details? Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, ACK is big on the wallets. You got any singles in that wallet? There you go. Just give it away for you. And then in Puerto Rico, that is a bougier bachelor party. And that is a little bit more detail-oriented. The highlight for me on that bachelor party, we're going to a Fogo de Chao, which I know Stu loves. A Brazilian-style steakhouse, and you just have the card that's green or red, and then all the meats just end up coming to the plate. That's delicious.
What day are you doing that?
I think that's Saturday evening.
All right,
There'll be some meat
just make
sweats.
sure, like, you do whatever kind of plans you're going to have, do it before you go to Fogo de Chao, because after Fogo de Chao, it's impossible to function as a human being. You have meat in your brain, you have meat in your feet, you have meat in your hands.
You're
the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, you're the Stay Puft Meat Mellow Man. That's all you are, just a walking piece of meat.
So, Samter and Stu, let me just say this. As much as I love you both, especially you, Samter, I don't think I need advice with my stature and my size on how I'm going to properly manage the Fogo de Chao steakhouse. I have been to more Fogo de Chaos than is probably even good for someone's health. I used to be very unhealthy. I think I will know how to manage through that meal. Your point is valid, but I don't think it needs to be said.
I'm just saying that it will be very, very difficult for anyone in your party to rally and do anything fun and interesting after stuffing your face with meat for 3 hours.
I 100% agree. Are we still talking about the strip club, or are we still talking about the Fogo
and
de
I'm
Chao?
out. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm out. Sanford's done.
Sorry, that was like just putting the ball in the tee there. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Real quickly, because you were talking about it earlier in Onside Offside, let's get the train back on the tracks here. And let's all make sure that we have jobs tomorrow.
Choo-choo.
Kirk Cousins, that was a very sad train sound. Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson. Yes or no, do you agree with me? Kirk Cousins will not be back with the Minnesota Vikings next season. I don't think the Vikings are going to get this deal done. You even hear that they're hesitant and skeptical with the new regime being in here, giving him a fully guaranteed contract. I'm going to say, as I said earlier, Kirk Cousins is going elsewhere. He's going to be on the Atlanta Falcons. Samter, do you agree that Kirk Cousins won't be back with the cold like Minnesota Vikings next season?
I don't know. Cousins has said multiple times that money isn't his biggest factor. He's made enough. I think Kirk Cousins is the kind of guy who, if he likes it in Minnesota and he loves Justin Jefferson, why, at this point in his career, try something different that you don't know if it's going to work? I think Cousins is back.
What about Justin Jefferson? So if Cousins coming back, then they get the long-term deal done with Justin Jefferson, is what you're saying?
I think they get the long-term deal with Justin Jefferson, and Cousins gives them a team-friendly, structured contract that will help the team keep Jefferson and build around.
So I don't disagree with you that Kirk Cousins would prefer to stay in Minnesota, but I don't think they want him. I think they realize that they need the next chapter. Kevin O'Connell needs a next chapter at the quarterback position. And, hey, it doesn't always go smoothly. Look what happened this year when someone got injured. But I think they'll try to move up in the draft, or if not, they will sign a stopgap guy until they can move up one of these years in the draft. And one of those stopgap guys, right, we talked about it. Justin Fields not going to probably get traded in division, even though that'd be a good decision. Maybe it ends up being Russell Wilson, who I suggested on Radio Row, to Justin Jefferson, where I'm not expecting him to jump for joy. That is a downgrade for Kirk Cousins, but that could be the stopgap kind of guy. We talked about Joe Flacco earlier. I don't think he starts for all 17 games, but if you need someone for the second half of the season, Joe Flacco, as he showed this year, is more than clearly capable. But I'm going to keep on thinking that Kirk winds up in Atlanta, and I think the Vikings have their eyes set on trying to find the next guy, whether that's this year or next year. The Jefferson one, they better get a deal done, though, before the start of this season, because if they don't, that's back-to-back off seasons not getting a deal done. Then when does Justin Jefferson just try to tune him out? This should be the easiest contract negotiations ever. This guy is the face of your franchise in Justin Jefferson. He has all the power. You got to give him a deal that he's comfortable with. And when you read this report that after the first year, they don't want to give guaranteed money, that makes absolutely positively zero sense because he is a stud. And when healthy, he's the best wide receiver in football. All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Why I don't think the NBA should get rid of their All-Star game. We'll do that on the other side. Update time first. Here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, blue skies today in Daytona for the Daytona 500. And right now, 64 laps in, Kyle Busch is your leader, followed by William Byron and Chase Elliott in a rapidly moving leaderboard in Daytona. The NBA still a few days away from resuming its schedule, but the Nets will have a different look when they return from the All-Star break. Jacques Vaughn was fired today with the team at 21-33, currently 11th in the Eastern Conference. Assistant Kevin Ollie reportedly promoted in the interim and will take over Thursday. The final straw was a 50-point loss in Boston to close out the first half of the season, the second worst loss in franchise history. The Timberwolves have agreed to a 2-year extension with Mike Conley worth $21 million, while Tommy Lloyd gets a 5-year extension in Arizona. The Patriots have reportedly released Lawrence Guy right now in the NHL this afternoon. Lots of action going on. After 2, it's Detroit with a 3-2 lead over Seattle. Calgary in front of Winnipeg 4-3. Edmonton after 2 trails Arizona 3-2, and it's Vegas on top of San Jose 3-0 in the second. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is JR. Let's hang out weeknights here on CBS Sports Radio for my show, the JR Sport Brief, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
I'll get to our Ask the Pros question in a second. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. So recently I've seen two videos where, people do this for a living, where they basically stalk athletes to get autographs from athletes and they sell the autographs. I always feel like it's very, very scummy when you make a kid go up to the player with like 6 or 7 cards where you know that the cards are going to get stolen and the kid just being used as basically like a prop here. Because an athlete sees a kid, you don't want to be the jerk that says no to the kid, but then the kid has 6 or 7 cards. It's like, yeah, we know that this is part of some sort of scheme. But Micah Parsons recently put out a video of people waiting for him at the airport to sign autographs. And, okay, you see like things like that happen. Here's what I always wonder. How do people know where Micah Parsons is going to be flying to? Now, if he's flying private, right, that information gets leaked, there's a way to travel. But if he was flying commercial and just like sitting in first class, how do they know that his flight was coming in and he was even on that flight? Like, you could research the flight, right, track the flight, but how do you know that Micah Parsons was on that flight? But anyway, I don't even care about that part of the conversation because you know how video is a little bit more powerful, and when you have a confrontation and it gets put on video, that thing goes viral. Carl Banks, legendary New York Giant, had to step in front of one of these autograph seekers, and Breece Hall, the guy that just wrapped up his second season with the Jets, and the fan or the guy that was trying to get the autographs he was annoyed that Breece Hall wouldn't sign for him, and he's calling him like the P word. He's saying, be a man, be a man, be a man. Like, dude, you're a grown man who's trying to get Breece Hall's autograph. Whether you're selling it or not, I don't care. The fact that you get into an altercation because some guy wouldn't sign for you is just crazy to me. And, like, it's one thing when you see people go after athletes or celebrities on social media because it's not in person. And you would think 9.9 times out of 10, what someone would say online, they wouldn't even come close to saying to someone in person. Like, I'm not comparing myself to Micah Parsons or Breece Hall. I would never do that. But I have never had a fan in person tell me I suck or I'm horrible or I'm the worst at my job. But online, you get a lot of that. But the fact now, and it just shows you how scummy some of these people are, you're getting into an altercation where you need Carl Banks, who is a large man, to step in as you're trying to fight Breece Hall because he won't sign for you. It's just a joke. And I understand that people have to try to make a living. And if this is your best way to try to make a living, which is collecting autographs, okay. But when an athlete doesn't want to sign, I don't think you should try to get in the fight. Here's the hot take of the day, the hot take of the year. I don't think you should try to get into a fight with that athlete. And also, there needs to be some personal space. Like I've said this before, Taylor Swift doesn't live that far away from our studios. The fact that there are fans lined up outside of our home nightly is scary. I read that Travis Kelce had to move homes. Jason Kelce said this when he first started dating Taylor Swift because so many people would go outside his home. And then when he moved into the new home, some dude knocked on his door. Like, you got to at least, I understand people want to meet famous people. People want to meet celebrities. It's cool. But there's got to be some line here. And when someone's at an airport, I'm not saying you can't ask them for a selfie. I'm not saying you can't ask them for an autograph. Like, Phil Simms was on my flight to the Super Bowl. And Phil Simms took a selfie with anyone in the airport that wanted to. But he wanted to do that. When Breece Hall is getting off a plane and he doesn't want to sign your 17 cards or your 17 photos, he's allowed to say no. It would be nice if he said yes. But also, I understand why he says no. And I'm not saying all fans aren't important, but at least for autographs to me is like a kid thing. When I was a kid, I loved collecting autographs. Now I don't collect autographs. But if I meet someone pretty cool, yeah, I want them on the show first. That's the first priority. I want them for an interview. But if we can't get that person on, I would want to take a picture with that person. That's fine. But if they say no, it shouldn't be let's get online or harass them with video and trash that person. Famous people are allowed to have bad days. They're allowed to have a day where they don't want to interact with people in the public, but because of who they are, they have to go out into the public and they have to interact with people in the public. But that's just crazy, man. There's no boundaries anymore. And how Breece Hall didn't want to sign for this guy, and this guy is incensed. I was waiting for the other shoe to fall, and I'm like, what else is going to happen? And then TMZ came out with it, basically this guy wanted an autograph. You know, he's selling autographs, obviously. And Breece Hall said no. And then the next thing you know, Carl Banks, whose nickname is Killa. Imagine, his nickname when he played was Killa. Imagine how dumb this fan is that he's trying to fight Breece Hall. And then you have a guy who's, and Carl's the sweetest dude ever, but not with this football name. And his nickname is Killa. And that's the guy that is saving you from getting your ass kicked by Breece Hall. It's wild to me. There's no more personal space in this society anymore. And I just can't, I could not fathom going, and I know this was in an airport, but going to an athlete's house or going to a celebrity's house when you don't know them and just knocking on their door or standing outside of their house just waiting to see a glimpse. Stu, you're a big Swiftie. All these people that stand outside of Taylor Swift's apartment, I get it. They're massive fans, and a lot of them are children. But, what do you think's going to happen? She's going to walk from outside of her apartment into a car. You're going to see her for 2 seconds, and that's it. That's it. Wait, now, have you been to
No,
Taylor Swift's
I haven't.
apartment?
It's super weird. No, I'm with you. It's very, very strange. Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
But I wanted to sound off on that because Thursday I won't be here. And usually we do the Zach Gelb Show Thursday PSA. Even the people that collect autographs for a living, and I'm not crapping on you. If that's how you have to make money, I get it. But if an athlete says no or a celebrity says no, don't try to fight them or don't give them attitude. Like I once saw a video online. I love Justin Bieber.
You do?
I love Justin Bieber.
Yeesh.
I think Justin Bieber is a phenomenal talent. I get he could act like a jerk sometimes. He's had his issues. That's been well documented. But I think a lot of men hate Justin Bieber just because they're jealous they're not Justin Bieber. Like, I am totally fine and comfortable in my own skin in admitting I have a man crush on Justin Bieber. But there was one time where the paparazzi was following him, and there was fans following him as he was going into his home. And he's like, guys, I'm fine if you follow me. When I'm at my home, like, this is my home. I don't come to your home. I'm in a supermarket, that's one thing. I'm at the gym, that's another thing. But when I'm at my home, there needs to be a personal boundary. You just need to go away. And then someone still said, oh, well, can I get a selfie with you? After he just said that. At your home, that should be a safe area. And you should be able to go home and not have people following you. But sometimes that's not always the case. Anyway, what were you going to say, Sam?
I was going to say, like, you go to L.A., they have maps of all the stars' homes, and people just kind of go from place to place to place. Now, I think also, like, listen, if you're, like, in New York or wherever, and someone just tells you where Taylor Swift's apartment is, and you want to just go and take a picture of the place and walk away, fine, right? It's kind of like it's a landmark to you, right? Like even around the city, Teddy Roosevelt's my favorite president. They have landmarks of all of Teddy Roosevelt's old apartments, and it's cool because it's history and it's something cool for me. So I'm okay with that. If you want to go up to someone's house and be like, ooh, this is so and so's house, picture, walk away. Standing outside trying to hope for an autograph or to bother them while they're there, that's very annoying. I think the line between human decency and celebrity has been so...
When did Teddy Roosevelt pass away?
A long time ago.
Like 1910, 1909?
No, 1917. Right before World War I started.
Okay.
1916, 1915.
You're comparing this. Like going to see Taylor Swift's house to some guy that died... Well, not some guy.
I'm just saying that there's certain
100
homes
years ago.
Certain locations that are landmarks.
But that's different than the whole Taylor Swift thing.
Yeah, but
like that person's living still.
Sure, but she may or may not be home. If you just go there because you know where it is and you take a picture of it, I don't have no issue with it.
Okay. No, that's fine.
It's a different story if you're waiting outside, hoping they find it or whatever, and then especially if you hoard them if they are there. I'm just saying if you just like, hey, someone says, hey, this is Taylor Swift's apartment building, and you take a picture and walk away.
Okay. I understand what you're saying.
Different.
Just my brain didn't process. So you're like, we're talking about Taylor Swift, we're talking about Brees Hall, and then Santa's like, yeah, Theodore Roosevelt was one of my favorite people ever, one of my favorite presidents ever. Like pretending like he was actually alive when he was alive. And I love visiting his homes. That guy died in 1920. That's a historical landmark. That's a little bit different. Taylor Swift, in 60 years passes away. You want to go visit what her apartment was, I'm fine with that. But when they're alive and you just stalk them outside their house, that's a difference. But I will say, if you want to go see the house, which I don't know what you're going to see from the outside, really. It's an apartment in New York City, whatever. That's different than sitting there and just waiting to get one glimpse of that person exiting their home. Anyway, it's time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Jim in Louisiana says, Zach, do you want to see the All-Star game go away? You can submit a question by tweeting at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs and get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. I do not. My expectations are low for the All-Star game. I don't care about the All-Star game. I did not watch the All-Star game last night. I don't think it needs to go away because it's marketed for children. That's what it's marketed for, the younger fan. You would like to see a more competitive effort, but the NBA has a competition issue where NBA players don't really care, some of them, for the regular season. Why would they care for an exhibition game? But I don't think the All-Star weekend was as bad as what everyone's making it out to be. Sure, the dunk contest was pathetic, and I gather this game last night was pathetic. But what were your expectations for it? What I thought was the best part of the All-Star weekend was the Steph Curry, Sabrina Ionescu three-point competition until you had Kenny Smith almost ruin it with him opening his mouth and saying dumb things on the broadcast when Sabrina put up 26 three-point shots made or points, whatever it was, and the guy that won the men's competition, Damian Lillard, had that same score. So I would like to add on to that. I would make that the featured event of All-Star Weekend. I don't think they'll play it on a Sunday, but they should do that every year on Saturday. And next year we should see Dame Lillard, Caitlin Clark, Sabrina, and Steph. And I thought that was the best part of All-Star Weekend. So I don't need All-Star Weekend to go away, and I don't need the All-Star Game to go away. Just lower your expectations and know what it is at this point. Big thanks to Paul Neal. Big thanks to each and every one of you, Stu and Mike as well. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We out. Bye-bye. Peace!